Yes, we're on.
Teamwork.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Thank you for coming down.
Not at all. It's always a pleasure. I love this part of the world.
Yes, you're in London.
Yeah. I live in Romford, and we work in Farringdon, which is pretty central. And it's just a little poodle down on the Thames link. It's great.
And you just got back from PAX, I hear.
Yeah, in Boston, PAX East. It's my first PAX.
Okay.
Actually, technically my first consumer show in the US.
Okay.
We've been having sort of a concerted effort to try to expand a little bit. You know, you get into almost like a habitual kind of flow with shows, you know, Develop here in Brighton, EGX Res, which are now both in London, although there was Birmingham, maybe Gamescom, etc. But you kind of end up meeting a lot of the same people.
Yeah. Have you done Reboot Develop yet?
Not yet.
We need to get on that action, don't we?
Hotel. It's like a resort. Like, what on earth?
It does seem like a holiday.
Yeah, basically. I try to make Develop as much of a holiday as possible, but being on the board there, you can only get away with so much. So, humble brag.
Yeah, we feel very fortunate just to have Develop on our doorstep. We just roll along there.
Yeah.
It's very lazy. Take it for granted, really.
I think that's easy to do. I think it's understandable, but I think you just got to make the most of these things. You know, you're smart enough to recognize the value and sort of, I don't know, I fluctuate, with these things. I sometimes frequently get to a point where I don't want to go. I'm not in the mood to network. I'm not feeling it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or maybe we just aren't looking for work or, to find people who we might want to hire or whatever. But every time I've thought that and then gone, and I'm sure there's not actually a correlation, but every time I've thought that and then gone to them, something great's happened.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing that makes you think, oh, the best, I wasn't planning on going out and then I had the best night. It's like the professional version of that.
Do you do all the parties and stuff then?
I used to quite a lot, purposefully hard. And now I'm 38 this year.
Oh, spring chicken.
Yeah.
I'm chasing 42.
Right.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a point, right? And you're just like, I don't know. Part of it was early on when I started Spilt Milk. It was just me, and so it was literally my social life was. I might as well combine the two,
right?
And obviously a lot of people have the same interests and all that sort of thing, so it worked quite well. Yeah, now it's not so much that, of course I get tired, but I get tired by everything. I'm not ancient, but there's always a point where you're like, I've got energy for this and I don't have energy for that, and you have to manage it. But more so it's just I'd much rather, if I'm going to go and spend some money at a bar or get food of an evening with people in the industry, I'd rather find a few that I really, really like,
right? Go
somewhere for a nice meal that we'll all enjoy, as well as the company. I don't know, I'm just kind of got to that point.
Sounds better.
Yeah.
I can't really deal with the parties at GDC or anywhere in America because I just get really bad jet lag.
Right.
So come 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, I'm spark out. Kirsty's like, I'm going out. See ya. Do all the networking. That's fine.
That's great.
Can't deal with it.
Yeah. Tag team.
I wish I could. But no.
And then you're the one lively in the pictures in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whilst Kirsty's cleaning her shoes of sick. Yeah. So how did you get started then?
Crikey. I mean, way back when, how far do you want to go? Spilt Milk has been going, it will be 10 years at the end of this month, March, which is crazy.
Happy birthday.
Cheers. Thank you. You're a few years ahead of me, I believe. I started Spilt Milk I always sort of say jokingly for one reason, but it's actually quite a serious one, because essentially I got to the point where I was kind of fed up doing what I perceived to be what other people were telling me against my better judgment.
Yeah.
And at that time, so we're talking, I was like 28. I was wrong.
Right.
Or at the very least, there are a lot of things I didn't know.
Yeah.
A lot of things that, reason. There's always a good reason behind every bad decision. That's my motto now, like my equally pithy and inaccurate motto now, because I've been through all that stuff now.
Yeah. You made some shit decisions.
Oh yeah, made some terrible ones. and sometimes forced to, right? Or feeling like you're forced to. But at the time, so I graduated out of Abertay University, spent 4 years there.
That.
Yeah. One of the originals, I think. We were the second year to be in the computer arts course. And I believe that the games tech course was only a couple of years older than that.
Oh, fantastic.
So, yeah, really, like, hopefully representing well as an alumni.
So was Ian Donald there at the time?
Yes, he was, yeah. And in fact, one of the guys who's now a lecturer there was at the same round of student interviews, but he went into the year above because he was Scottish. He'd been at a college course or something before then. But Dana Galloway.
Ah, yes.
So like we go back to literally, we met at the point that we were showing Abertay professors our portfolios. But yes, 4 years there, then 5 years in Dundee at various games companies, QA all the way up to like level design through the usual sort of route. And then the designer at a company called Proper Games.
We met Proper really Games small. A few years ago.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They're a good bunch.
Can't remember where we were. They might have been showing us Flock.
Oh, wow. Gosh, if it was that long ago, I might have been in the room. That's the scary thing.
Well, we were at a conference, I think.
Was it?
It might have been Develop or I can't think now.
No. The first time we showed it anywhere was Leipzig. Gamescom in
definitely
Leipzig.
Weren't there.
Right, okay. And that's where we signed it to Capcom.
Oh, wow.
When XBLA was sort of on the up, you know, everyone was looking for good, small kind of games for Xbox Live Arcade, PSN, all that sort of thing. Yeah, and I was, so the company, I think I was employee number 7 or 8. And in the design department was the creative director, Jeff Gunning, and then me. So by default, I was kind of like doing a lot of stuff, but it was, you know, it was the right size of project and all that kind of thing. Got a lot of experience pitching. Whereas in a bigger company, obviously I wouldn't have been, it would have been just him, but it was the pair of us sort of going around went to Paris to pitch it to Ubisoft, all kinds of things. Wow. So for my experience in the industry and maybe title, I was getting much wider experience than I normally would have.
It's the benefit of working in a small company, right?
Yeah, exactly right. And that was the thing. Until then, I'd been going from bigger company to slightly smaller to slightly smaller to slightly smaller. And then this was like the smallest. And even there, after a couple of years, there was just nowhere for me to go in a sort of mercenary sense. You know, I couldn't oust Jeff. That wasn't going to happen. And so I'd worked at almost all the companies in Dundee that I'd wanted to. And so that combined with, I really wanted to live in London while I was still young. And a friend of the family was a bit of an entrepreneur, and he essentially was like, "Oh, you should just start a company." I was like, how do you do that? And he was like, "Well, you just pay an accountant." I was like, I don't have an accountant. And I was like, "Oh, well, you just, this guy, that guy introduced me to someone, blah, blah, blah." And before I know it, got a company. I'm sort of consulting on games with Proper Games just to sort of have a handover period, you know, build up a little bit of cash. And then without much of a plan, I just went south, moved in with the parents for 2.5 years. And yeah.
So what was your first bit of work then?
So technically it was on Crackdown 2 DLC, but that was just because I left during it to start. So that's kind of, it would have been a bit mean of me to
See ya.
Yeah, laters. So the first bit that I won was actually with the accountancy firm that I was introduced to, who are based in Brighton, Crunch.
Oh my God, Crunch. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, and this is illustrative, I think, of the games industry and sort of how a lot of my experience of business opportunities and that sort of thing occurred. Was a friend of my family knew the guy who was starting up Crunch, and that's how he introduced me. But he happened to mention that I was starting a games company. And so then when I rang them to set up an account, he actually asked if he could speak to me, and because he was excited, he was like, "Oh, cool, yeah, that's kind of, you know, we're new, we're tech, we're digital." So we had a little chat, and I basically just wrangled my way into making an app for them. Nice. So I made a little number matching game for iPhone. Okay. Contracted a programmer, and then that was kind of it. That was project number 1. Out of nothing.
So you did a design course, and then you made an app. So were you using Unity, or were you programming in Objective-C?
No, so I cannot program. I
Right.
can barely script.
Okay.
So it was, I believe it was in, I believe it was in Java, and then ported. So there was a version that we could test on desktop,
Right.
because I didn't have the funds to buy an iMac or whatever. So, back in the dark days. And yeah, so it was, I mean, it was so simple, so lightweight, like Bejeweled or something like that,
Right.
but with maths.
Yeah.
So I took an idea that, it's an existing game, essentially. It's a game that's been on web portals and flash portals for years and years and years. And a friend of mine had actually done like a version of someone's version recently. And so I was like, oh, hang on, that would match really well. Foolishly, I didn't think to ask him. Idiotic mistake number one of the Spilt Milk Studios. But I mean, the guy that I did ask was very good, and we were friends as well. But I just, for whatever reason, I just was like, why didn't I just think of that direct link?
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a small amount of money, and it meant that, combined with living with my parents, I could last a bit longer, and then teamed up with another guy from Dundee for Hardlines, which was the one that sort of established us, I suppose.
Yes. So when Hardlines was announced, I remember knowing about it. So it obviously got a lot of traction, publicity. But I seem to remember there being a bit of friction or something to do with it.
Yeah.
But I didn't really look into it because I was too busy. But that's the thing that stays in my mind.
Yes. Yeah, it's a shame. It ended, as a lot of creative partnerships do, with essentially a bit of a falling out.
Oh, right.
Down to the usual stuff, poor communication.
Right.
It's sad because it got into the press a little bit. I mean, that was part and parcel of how we operated. The pair of us, actually, we were very, what's the word? Kind of forthcoming, forthright.
Loose lips.
Yeah. And of course, as mentioned, thought I knew everything,
Right, okay.
as did Nicole. So it's just one of those things. I think, no doubt we both regret it. And it's a shame because I think, it certainly affected both of our reputations for a little bit.
Did it? Right.
Those things, they happen, with boring, mundane regularity in any creative endeavor. People like working together, and then something happens and they fall out, and like whatever.
Yeah.
Neither of us handled it particularly well, and we did so loudly.
Right.
And so,
okay.
So I think it's fair to say, there were probably some. I'm not sure, deals wouldn't have been signed or whatever, but I think people are a little bit like, they're one of the sort of these loud young indies, and bit of caution.
I do have this rule that if something happens, if you have a bad business experience, keep your mouth shut about it. That's just one thing, because it's so easy to Google. If you're pitching and someone Googles your company name, and the first thing that comes up is the thing that's going to come up, which is the negative stuff.
Yep.
But that's a good early lesson.
It was, it was fantastic. I learned that I'm no good with numbers. And honestly, it sort of chastened a little bit of that sort of natural urge to be loud, which is what got us the impact that Hardlines had for like two nobodies, essentially. We just came south, both moved to London independently, funnily enough. That was one of the things that brought us together. And then, we had this great game, and it reviewed well, and we were just noisy enough. And then, and that was, so it's, everything, as with many things, it's sort of,
so what's your approach when you get noisy? What's your first trick?
Well, I mean, like literally, I guess, we're noisy everywhere. So Twitter's the main place, or it used to be, and I'm not convinced that it is anymore. But
you're not doing dances on TikTok right now?
No. I might hire someone to, I don't know. Although I do have it on my phone.
Yeah.
And I'm still a bit like, I'm not sure what it's
a rabbit hole.
Yeah, a little bit.
Sorry, carry on.
No, it's fine. But I think the trick to it is having the ability to ignore all the bits in your head that tell you that the game's bad, or as a designer, you'll understand you all you ever see is the things that you weren't able to achieve to the level that you wanted, right? And that's going to happen with every project you've ever made and ever will make. And it's just fooling yourself, or putting a different hat on, or adopting a persona that isn't that person, that role, and then trying to run like that. So what I've noticed is that I find it a lot easier to talk about other people's games. If I like the people and I like their game,
Right.
then I will really, really
Evangelize.
evangelize. And I'm like, well, I just need to accept that it's okay to do that to my stuff as well. So that's how you do it, I think. That's how I do it. Yeah, and the rest of it is a bit like stalking. I've never stalked anyone, so I'm just making an assumption. But you know, you have to do your research. You have to find the people that would be interested. You have to find the overlaps of you know, interest, of coverage, of streamers, of whatever. You know, back then it was still websites. You know, it's still Pocket Gamer who's enjoyed the most arcadey sort of video games on mobile. Who's written an article that said, oh, these games are great, but I miss Snake or whatever. Right? Any angle that you could find. And then
that's stalking.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And you put it in but the thing is, it's really easy to trace if you ever get in trouble, right? So, you know, it's in an Excel sheet or whatever, and you're marking tabs off, and you're like, right, I've emailed them on this date, and I haven't had a reply in, you know, next week, so I'll nudge them again and all this sort of thing. But it's all very un-English in some sense, you know. I think we do genuinely find it difficult at PAX. Everybody's on all the time, and it's just such a difference.
Yeah, whenever we pitch in the US, I have to caveat by saying, we are genuinely interested in this, we're just English. And it gets a laugh because everyone knows that we're just too quiet and too reserved compared to, especially with my voice, which is pretty soft. Cool. So that happened and it was successful. We got a lot of attention anyway.
Yeah.
And then you had the fingers burned.
Yeah. What
happened then?
Well, I wasn't looking for work. I was looking for money, which are two different things. Okay. You know, pirate treasure maps and things like that. I was aware that, you know, I had not achieved the next game. I had a few prototypes running with various people, and, you know, things I didn't know about, like managing external and remote staff and all this kind of thing. Even when it's just two people, there are challenges there. Yeah. But it got to a point where I was like, I need a job, but I don't want to do that outside of being Spilt Milk. You know, I'm very stubborn, still am, and I was like, the value is in keeping everything within Spilt Milk. Yeah, everything I can. So ended up through Twitter convincing or responding to Appy Nation, set up by Andy Payne and a whole bunch of devs, including Proper Games. Right. To basically, they needed a marketing and PR type person.
Oh, really?
/ producer, it turned into.
So you jumped on that?
So I jumped on that. Yeah. Worked on something like 8-9 games over like a year and a half. Okay. Was able to keep it as, you know, it's Spilt Milk doing this for Appy Nation. Yeah. But a lot of time it was full time in their office. And that meant I could build up a little bit of war chest, brilliant connections. You know, I was being paid to go to all the events that I'd normally be like, can I afford the train into London? And it meant that I could move to London as well, which was another big step, you know, being inside that sort of circle, that bubble, I suppose you'd call it now.
Smart.
Yeah.
So that was how long, did you say?
It was about a year and a half, maybe 2.
So you built up a bit of cash.
Yeah.
And were you developing ideas in the background?
Indeed, yeah. So still being noisy.
So what year is this, sorry?
Oh, crikey, you've asked. 2013 to 14, I want to say. Something like that.
Right.
And so the game that I was working on at that time was Smash the Block, which was very much like, okay, we did this sort of cool update with character to Snake. Mm-hmm. What other games are sort of ripe for that? You know, I'm not a designer who's afraid of, you know, taking inspiration from other games, especially classics. Yeah. And so, it was supposed to be Breakout, but with a lot more character, like even more than, you know, sort of a rare level of characters, eyes on everything. I was showing some work around that at Game City, which was not to do with Appy Nation. I just managed to get, you know, a bit of time off and go along. And it's an amazing festival in Nottingham. I'm not sure it still runs, actually. But ended up on a stall next to a couple of students who'd set up a company in their sandwich year, which was like, that shows some chops.
Yeah, it does.
And got talking, and there was some overlap in skills, and that person was Andrew Roper.
Really?
Fast forward like 4 years, we'd brought him on as a technical director for the company.
Oh.
But between those 2 points, we built and shipped Tango Fiesta.
Yes.
Yeah, which was...
I spotted that at Resd.
Yeah. So that came from a jam at EGX. Eurogamer and Creative Assembly, I believe, were sponsoring it. And it was just, you apply for the jam, you'll be on the show floor jamming for 2 days.
Oh, cool.
And at the end of the Sunday, they would have a prize ceremony. So the theme to be revealed on the day. And because of everything that we'd done with Hardlines and older versions of Lazarus, just everything that we'd done at Eurogamer would become, again, we were loud and noisy, so people knew us. So when we applied and we sort of over-egged the application, we got the artist that we teamed up with, Ewan, to do little portraits of us all in his style, because that's how the game would look inevitably, right? So, they were like, guys, you didn't need to do that, like it was a bit over the top.
But it gets attention.
So yeah, we got in and we came second. The prize was a laptop each for the team, which would have been really great, actually. Like at that time, it's like, that would have been amazing. Top of the line. We came second, but through that work and working up at, in our spare time as a team beyond that for a couple of months, and then explicitly my connection to Andy Payne, who also was on like the managing or the director's board, whatever you call it, of Mastertronic, and they were looking for PC games, console games. So it all kind of, they were like, look, he wasn't involved other than like being the link, but in being in the same office as that company and knowing people, just I knew who to talk to.
So so they published it.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, funded and published through early access launch all the way up to sort of 1.0. Yeah, and then 3 or 4 months later, they sadly went out of business. Which
Okay.
Which really sucked. There was obviously people losing their jobs. It's horrible. But it meant that actually we didn't see Ascent pretty much. I think maybe we saw some. I can't quite remember, but essentially, there's that launch spike on Steam, and then you throw that back into the game, and you build momentum. And we didn't ever quite
get
there. So it was a shame. But we got console ports through Merge, who were brilliant, and it's still ticking over to this day. So can't complain.
I saw The Legend of Tango. Is it?
Yes.
That's hilarious. How did that come about?
So genuinely hop in here if you're like, what the hell were you doing?
I mean, that was the preface for the subtext for my question. It's like, there's a lot of work here.
There was a lot of work. So in my experience, and this hasn't changed too much, there tends to be towards the last, like through the QA process, let's put it that way, of a game, for a designer, there's less work than there has been up to that point.
Absolutely.
And so I was very much aware of all these other hats. I'll continue that metaphor. The marketing hat was one of them. So it's like, okay, we're coming up to launch. It's really difficult. This was before the indie apocalypse, really. So I think we're talking 2015. I'm probably about a year off, but anyway, let's go with that. But we were aware that it's becoming a struggle to get any attention. And like, well, we know the Eurogamer lot fairly well. It was born at their show, so there's probably, hopefully, they'll be keeping an eye out if nothing else. So we're like, well, that should be all right. But we need something. We can't just do a press release. I was sick of press releases.
So you made an entire game.
So I made a game that was supposed to be a playable press release, right? Genius, amazing. Isn't it genius?
It is genius. Yeah.
Except for the fact that you have exactly the same problem getting people to pay attention to that game because it's a game. So what I mean, in terms of work, it was literally just myself. I asked the team, I was like, I'm planning on doing this. I won't take more than like 2 weeks doing it.
No way, really?
Well, it was an RPG maker.
Okay.
Right, and it's like a 15-minute long thing, and don't get me wrong, there were still bugs at launch. I think there was a bug at launch, and all this kind of thing. But yeah, I was like, do you know what? Why not? I've got to give this a go. Like once I'd thought of it, I was cool. Like, I have to try it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just did not help at all.
Really?
No.
Oh, that's sad.
No, it's a shame. We put it out for free, and I think it's up on itch right now as well. But I'm still proud of it, and it's essentially a comedy RPG. Because I couldn't make anything else land, especially not mechanically in 15 minutes of play, that was just sort of riffing on how the game came to be, which is lovely for our ego, but is of no interest. It's of interest to maybe the 5 people who were at EGX and go, I think I remember that name. Is that a thing? You know, and all the silly puns and bad wordplay and, you know, all that kind of
Didn't
stuff.
land.
It just didn't land. Like, well, who's the audience? Like, it's absurd. But I did think maybe someone would have picked up, oh, someone's made a game to announce their game, but didn't even get that. So, yeah.
That's such a shame.
It is a shame.
Maybe if you tailored it to people at Eurogamer, if you'd featured people in there.
Well, I did. And I have a feeling that maybe that was a bit of a problem, genuinely, because even if they wanted to, it would have made them want to. They can't talk about it. So that was silly. But there you go. So lessons learned.
Yeah, I had a similar lesson where I was very... Because back in 2012 or whatever it was, 2010, there were tons of games websites.
Yeah.
All sort of bedroom hobbyists, if you like, making games websites. And they were all getting traction because streamers wasn't a thing then.
Yeah.
And I made friends with a couple of people. And so I put them in the credits of Velocity. And that was not a good idea.
Oh, no.
No. It was just, it's naive.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
It comes from a good place, though, right? That's
yeah,
the thing.
it does.
It's not like an angle. It's just you know, if they've genuinely helped.
It was a special thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Never mind.
You're trying to kickstart before that was a thing, you know.
So how many months was it that Tango Fiesta was out before you had the bad news that the publisher had gone?
I genuinely think it was about month 3 or 4 that it had been since its full launch. But I mean, we'd been in early access for maybe 14 at that point, you know, which was great.
And it's just you and Andy Roper at this point?
No, so throughout the whole development, it was the 4 of us.
Okay.
So myself, Andy Roper, who wasn't on as a director at that point, Ewan Brock, who's an amazing artist, believe he just shipped a game with Tony Gowland, which the name of which I've completely forgotten. That's terrible. Fail plug.
Dub it in later.
Yeah, I'll just move my mouth. And it's about ghost busting. It's brilliant, and it looks like Rocco's Modern Life. It's incredible.
Cool.
And Gavin Harrison, who's an amazing audio chap. I never know what to call them. Audio designer, I suppose. And composition man. So it was 4 of us, nice tight team. It was the Jam team, and we got together through you know, Twitter and that sort of thing to jam, and then we landed the full game, and so we carried on, and then I think at the end of basically as we shipped, we kind of had to sort of put a big question mark over how we continue, and then when we didn't really see any money from it, it was like, oh, I guess we can't really, which really sucked. And actually, one of my regrets is, I don't think that was badly handled, but I'm super aware and sensitive to ends of projects. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you handle that? How do you make it not weird when you next meet? You know, especially if it's because it hasn't really done what everyone hoped. It's a funny one. Like, I don't know, maybe it might just be in my head, you know, that sort of like...
I guess if it's collaboration, it's difficult.
Yeah.
Because you don't see each other for a while.
Exactly. We're all remote for the whole time.
Right.
And yeah, it does make it weird, even with the nicest people, you know, there's just an element of like, oh, so that didn't go anywhere then, you know.
Maybe karaoke would do it.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Make it even weirder as a backdrop.
Well, I mean, Gavin has access to this incredible sound booth
right.
where we did a lot of VO. That was a fun day. That was a really good day. But yeah, I don't think anyone's got any regrets or anything.
Sure.
Don't want to put it out of whack, but it's just that thing. And it's always been I think combined with the burnt fingers with Hardlines, you know, it's something that I've always had a little bit of sensitivity towards, you know, so it's something that I've always vowed, you know, to take seriously. And I take people getting along at work very seriously, for want of a better word. You know,
so what do you do differently then?
So I make sure that the beginning and end of anyone's sort of time with us, be it contract or whatever, is marked somehow. Mm-hmm. Like that's the baseline, you know. So usually it's a meal at both ends, right? And you take as long as you want with the meal. It's not like we're guarding, oh, we've contracted you for this day and we're paying you, you know, and we're eating together. It's not. It's like a completely separate thing. And I feel it's very important that people kind of, if they feel like at home is kind of a bit strong, but like comfortable, relaxed, able to talk to us as equals and not the people that are guarding their paycheck.
Yeah.
And also on the other end, on a sort of more accounting focused end, is paying them as soon as possible. As soon as we get their invoice, if we've got the money, we pay them. Like, cash flow be damned, essentially, because I've been there, and I don't want to do it to anyone, especially everyone we work with tends to be a freelancer, so it's incredibly crucial for them, and I imagine that's got us repeat business with people or whatever, or new leads or whatever that I don't know about. I hope so, but that's not why we do it. It's because it's about respect, I guess.
Yeah. We've got the same policy.
Yeah.
There's no reason to wait 30 days or 60 days or, Lord forbid, 90 days, which some companies do.
That's one of those things that I've never agreed with, never understood, and still stick by. Whereas some things, we're like, oh, why don't you just do that? And it's like,
and then you learn
actual reasons. But that's one I'm like, no, there's no point. Cool. I might be eating my words if we ever get bought by a Korean company or something, and they're like, no.
Okay, so you disbanded.
Yeah.
So what did you do then?
So stuck around with Andrew, primarily because, being a bit harsh, I can design, he can code. There's always a way of finding artists or audio people, right? Much as we've got the relationship with the other two guys, I'm not going to drop the code that we can't make a game.
No.
So it's a bit brutal, but that's how it is.
Yeah.
And we worked on a few more bits and bobs, prototypes here and there, and essentially scraped by through a combination of contacts in the industry. Be nice, that's the big rule, right? And then eventually bided our time till we landed a little bit of funding from UK Games Fund.
Bless them.
Exactly, right? Much as I'm like, oh, this form, and why haven't you chosen us this year? It's magic. It's brilliant. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that was what gave birth to Waterways, which is
yes.
Yeah. See, everyone. I feel like I could say Waterways, and to anyone in the industry in the UK, and they'd be like, I think I've heard of that at the very least.
Because you've been hawking it around.
Exactly right. Yeah. Being loud. That was a funny one. So we
was this 2016?
Yeah, it must have been. So there was with Tango Fiesta. Let me try and sort it out slightly. So we were working on some amount of update, I should say, myself and Andrew, bug fixes and trying to take the next step. Hoping that the money would come. Did
you say you did ports? Sorry.
So we Merge Games, who are based in Manchester, I think. Got in touch to do the port. So they arranged a coder from Italy who handled it all. We were like, we don't really have the experience all the time, which I'm not sure was true. I thought it was, but I'm not sure it was. And so they arranged the port, and we got a good deal out of it, and they basically manage everything on consoles for us.
Okay.
And then just send us a report every couple of months.
And they funded it all and everything.
Yeah, nice. Which is really great. And so, and then did a little bit of work for hire for a company called Iron Galaxy in Chicago. They're one of these companies that have done all kinds of amazing work. So they're basically in charge of Killer Instinct now. They handle the ports of the console versions of Elder Scrolls Online.
Okay.
So big stuff. Yeah. And I met them through my first contact, the first person I met at Capcom. They were best buds because they worked at Midway together, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long old story, but essentially word, I went to Gamescom with them, and then it turned into a whole kind of, we should definitely stay in touch, and what are you doing? And just the stars aligned, essentially. They were looking for tiny teams to do a little bit of ideation, or prototyping, real simple stuff, real basic stuff, but they were offering a little bit of a incentive.
That sounds great.
This is great. Yeah. So we did that for a couple of months, and then we saw this UK Games Fund, and I'd had two separate ideas for games rolling around in my head. Actually, that's a lie. I had one idea for a game and one idea for essentially a comic book. Or a world I wanted to explore. It was more about the characters and the setting. And then when this opportunity came along with the Games Fund, it was I've got a week to write this application.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, right. Things never change. But also get in touch with everyone that we know, ask if they'd be interested, this, that, and sort of sell them on the idea, right? It's if we land this, would you take this day rate for this many weeks next year. And you're not going to find out until a week before, essentially, right? And luckily, everyone said yes. So it was 11 weeks with 9 people. And it went from 0 to playable prototype in that time.
Whoa.
And it's bad. It's not a very fun prototype, right? Which is a problem that we would encounter later on. Okay. You know, spoilers. But it really demonstrated and like what we could do. And that's been a constant sort of thing that's been reinforced, which is great. But also, for us, it explored all the questions that we wanted to explore. And now we know a lot of the wrong answers, which, as you'll know, is tremendous, right? So, okay, so if we get another crack at this, we absolutely, like 80% of it, we're really confident of the answer, which is phenomenal. So we managed that, and then we took it to GDC.
Which is when I think we met in the W.
Yes, I think it was.
Because we were showing Velocity Supernova.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What happened?
And you looked at it and went, "That's going to get signed." And I went, "I know." I was so confident.
It should have.
Yeah.
It should have. Oh man, I feel like we should do should we swap seats?
Carry on.
Oh, I remember that vividly.
Yeah.
Oh man. Anyway, okay. Yeah. So we hawked it around, and this was like, oh, this is our big shot, right? Okay. Everything. This is everything. So I pulled in every contact I had, and so we were pitching to Sony second party out of nowhere. Like, what chops had we got? We've shipped a game that reviewed averagely. Do you know what I mean? But like, hey, it's a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. So sorry, I'm being British.
Also, people have heard of you.
Oh yeah, people have heard of us, right? So. Yeah, we're hooking it with Sony, Nintendo. I don't know how we managed that. 2 meetings with Nintendo.
Nice.
It's like, oh my gosh.
Big boardroom, big table.
Yeah.
Japanese translations.
Yeah.
Scary as hell.
Team of like 6.
Yeah.
Although, lovely story. I believe it was the guy who's the designer on Pikmin 2, which I was like, oh my God. They told me before we started. I was like, you could have saved that. And this would have been
much easier.
Much easier.
Yeah.
But he came out afterwards, after the pitch. We were sort of high-fiving in the corridor, I don't mind saying. And he was like, "Oh, have you seen a film called The Mist? It's Stephen King. You should check." I was like, "Oh my God, that's one of our like main points of reference. Oh my God, you just get it, So we're just pitching it to everyone over like 3-4 days, and even back when we returned to London, we were like, anyone we know that hasn't seen it, like literally, let's just get the telephone director out and go through it. And that we ended up showing it to, amongst other people, Improbable. And again, the stars sort of aligned. So they are looking for small teams to do interesting stuff with their tech. We had demonstrated that we're a small team able to deliver quite a lot on a very short timescale with tech that we weren't experts in, certainly. And so, talks happened and we ended up making Lazarus.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is
everything's just so fortuitous and lucky, isn't it?
It's absurd.
Yeah.
Like I've yet to do it, but I've done a talk at Abertay that was about sort of a summary of my journey from the point that I graduated.
Okay.
Because I thought these students are about to, right? Like that'll be an interesting little thing.
Definitely.
And I tried to think, all of the links, and actually there is a direct line through every single business opportunity.
Wow.
Which is, I don't know if that's normal, but there is 1 degree of separation essentially in almost every business transaction.
That's fascinating.
Which is crazy.
Have you drawn a chart?
I want to. That's the thing. Yeah. You've got your like timeline.
Yeah, the chart on the wall.
I want to do that for our stuff. But yeah, it's bonkers. Anyway, so I don't know that that's repeatable success, and I'm obsessed with the idea of finding some example of repeatable success. I don't think it is.
Hence doing this.
Exactly right. Are we just jousting at windmills?
I want to figure it out.
Yeah. So that turned into 2.5 years, 3 years.
So improbable, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So they said, we've got this tech. These are the parameters. Small studio, small idea. What can you do? And then you just riffed on that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So to make this even more like some kind of bizarre Hollywood version of how games works. Any producers listening, right? Essentially, that happened. Like, we had the meeting, we showed them the thing, and it was like, right, I need to talk to someone. So they talked to someone, and then we got a call, and they were like, you should come in again. and we met with the CEO, Herman, and he basically gave us the big sales pitch. And we were like, okay. And he's like, I think either then or the call before, they were like, come in with a couple of just like just come in with like having thought about what you might do. And so I just kind of came up with 3 broad ideas. And
sorry, with how much time?
So like the night before.
Love it.
And essentially in the meeting with Herman, we just, there was a point at which I was at a whiteboard drawing a screen and then doodling the games and going 1, 2, 3, and he was like 2. And of course, it isn't quite that simple. I'm sure there were machinations and all kinds of stuff we didn't see going on. But from our point of view, it's like, okay, did that just happen?
Right place, right time.
Yeah. And then within a week, we'd started, we'd figured out the arrangement and we'd started on the game. We came in and basically jammed something together very quickly over like 2-3 weeks with us 2 and the 3D artist that we use for Motorways, who is a guy I've known since I was 7, maybe 6, which is crazy.
Are there cute pictures of you from that time?
No doubt. Yeah.
Water
I
pistols and stuff.
Like big teeth, sticky out ears, all the good stuff. That's a whole other, that's another podcast. But we worked together, and then that sort of got to a point where they're like, right, okay, let's go to the next step. Where can you go next? Where can you go next? And basically that just happened for 2.5, 3 years. And then, we got up to 7-8 people at one point, all mostly remote. But what an experience for me to manage them over such a long time. So grew an immense amount there. And
it looked and sounded great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very kind. We thought it was really cool, really different. We cheated a little bit because we'd worked on a game called Lazarus for iPad, which was supposed to be essentially Shooty Skies, I guess, is the most popular version of what it was intended to be.
Okay.
But, we were 2 years ahead of that. And it was actually the game that I initially sort of thought, this young Mr. Roper would be suited to working on with me. So there's even a link there. But at some point we were like, we need some visuals and a name and stuff. How do we get there quicker? Like, Lazarus.
Snag.
Got some concept art that was done back then. And so that all kind of came together. And then, sadly, I guess 8 months ago now, something like that, we had to knock it on the head. It'd been live and playable for a good 2 years. We built up a community around it. So we were mostly sort of worried about letting them down. No one had paid anything,
right?
Which was good, and I think dictated the tone a little bit. It could have gone a lot worse, but essentially it wasn't going to make money for anyone, it could have if we were the kind of team that had the chops that could raise millions, but we don't, and that was just a shame. If we'd shipped an MMO or a multiplayer focus game, or if we just had 1 or 2 more key staff locked in, I think maybe we could have. But that combined with, the eternal passage of time, just meant, options run out.
Yeah.
And so we knocked it on the head. Yeah.
It feels like you got a similar, it's just frustrating because you want to show what you can do. So you pitch the best you've got. So sometimes you're lucky and someone believes in it. Mm-hmm. And then for whatever reason, it doesn't go well. You're like, fuck's sake, back to the drawing board.
Yep.
And it just happens over and over and over and over again. Yep. You just got to grow the thickest skin.
Oh yeah. It's one of the things that interacting with people outside of the industry, I've noticed is I'm very impatient with people who take offense at things or who are overly sensitive, in my view, towards things or precious about something that they've done.
Okay.
And it can come across as me being really dismissive or because I guess it is or unimpressed, if someone's like, oh, look at this thing I made. I'm like, it's not finished, so you ain't shipped it. So, which is horrible. And I check myself, hopefully I check myself, but it's something I've noticed. I was like, oh, crikey, there've been a few times, no specifics come to mind, but I know I've done it.
Right.
Specifically, when you're sort of in relaxed company, friends and family, so you get forgiven, I suppose. But I'm like, oh God, no, that's a thing that just because just because I do out of habit, or I've grown this thick skin because of necessity.
You've been through the cycle 100
good
times.
At. It's just, it's just part and parcel. These are my scars, you know. It's crazy. And similarly, working with people that it took me a little while to realize, you know, that some people just aren't comfortable or happy being gregarious.
No.
And
I have to be in the right mood.
Yeah.
My preference is to be the opposite of gregarious. Things have to be lined up in the right direction for me to sort of prance about. But I love it when I do. It's good fun.
Yeah, it is.
I guess you need to, I feel like I need to have a lot of confidence in the product. Like going out on PlayStation blog and saying that Velocity 2X is going to be a Game of the Year winner. Yeah. That took balls.
Yeah.
But it's because Velocity had come out and done so well under the radar.
Yeah. Critically
it had done well, but the graphics were, you know, nothing to write home about. And then Velocity Ultra came out and it solved a lot of problems and our fan base loved it. And again, it did well critically. But still, it was still under the radar. So I knew that when Velocity 2X came out, it would feel like it came out of nowhere because we'd had like 3 years to develop it. So I was incredibly confident.
Yeah.
And that was good times.
It's a smashing game. It's absolutely brilliant. Like, yeah. And that's the thing. I like you've, it sounds like, and I'm sure this isn't quite true, but it sounds like you're able to be almost unilaterally proud of everything about that product.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is just incredible. Yeah. Like, that's rare.
It was a rare moment.
That is rare.
When we were making it, I knew that this was a special time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily going to last like this because we were in that very comfortable sweet spot of having the spotlight shone on us by Sony.
Yeah.
And had the backing and the funding and the platform and the talent. You know, we had the right talent at the right time. It was just a really special moment. And trying to get back to it. We're trying to sort of recreate that with our new product. But I'm so envious of companies that can put out an amazing game and then put out another amazing game. How do they do that?
I don't know. I haven't done the first one yet, but you know, we'll get there. It's exactly right. It's so hard.
Yeah,
it's so hard. Something that I've been enjoying, I'm not sure that's the right word, recently is listening to very, very big podcasts about games, and they've been playing Dreams.
Oh yes.
And they, you know, all the talk about the experiences of these people who know much more than the average Joe about games development, but haven't actually made a game. They haven't gone through it. Sure. And I'm not saying, you know, they haven't got their brands or whatever, but just that there's still that gulf, and them coming to terms with that gulf of just how complicated everything is. And I catch myself doing it, you know, when you're scoping something out, a feature, and then you're like, oh, I reckon, you know, this, that, and the other, and we're all best guessing, and we're all like questioning it, and like, right, are we sure? Add 20%, another 20%, all right, cool. And then it's still wildly inaccurate. You're like, how did we get that wrong again? And it's like, it's okay, it's just hard, you know. But you've got to. There's that sort of, it's internally frustrating, but so rewarding. You know, I don't think it will ever change being frustrating. You know, but we're all striving towards that point. But the highs are so much higher than I think the lows are. Yeah. Have
you read the Creativity Inc. book by Ed Catmull?
To my shame, I own it and I haven't read it.
Oh, you own it?
Yeah.
You need to go home and read it immediately.
Right. Okay.
It talks about trusting the process. It's always difficult. You always have that horrible period where you think everything's broken and everyone's going to hate it. And there are problems you can't fix. But we've all been there 10 times before. So I think over time you just learn the lesson that whatever you start with has to be simple. Which we haven't learned that lesson yet, I don't think. Peaky Blinders isn't simple. It's quite complicated. But often it's the complicated stuff that gets people excited.
That's the rub, right?
Yeah. That's the rub.
You have to if you're pitching to someone with money that isn't Well, no, even the consumers, right? Like, even if you're doing Kickstarter, it's got to be exciting.
It's got to be
somehow.
novel and something different. Yeah.
Yeah. And it has to be on more than one vector, right? It can't. Well, yeah, maybe that's not true. Maybe it can just be exciting because the graphics are a really well realized style that hasn't been done before. But it is what we do. It's what we love, right?
Yeah. We hired a guy a couple of years ago, and in the interview he was like, so you did Velocity and you're doing Tiny Tracks, you've done Tiny Tracks, you're doing Mini Mech Mayhem. Do you want to make games do you have a vision for the games you want to make? I was like, of course, but we've got to pay the rent. And so this is why I'm particularly interested in talking to you, because I think we have something in common. Despite Velocity 2X being a good game and doing well critically, it wasn't a commercial hit.
Right.
Unless I'm missing something, neither of us have had a commercial hit.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're still here.
Yeah.
You're 10 years in,
yeah.
16 years in. What's that special thing that's making, are we just mad? Should we have given up years ago?
Yeah. No, we should not have. No.
Did you ever want to give up at any point?
No.
Right.
No, I don't think so. I've cried about it. Right. And I've had times when I've genuinely been thinking about my options, but I've never wanted to give up.
No.
That's the thing that stopped me doing that.
Yeah.
Privileged white guy view, but if you stop, that's when you failed.
Indeed.
And I realise that for a lot of people that is not reality, right? Sure, that's when you fail, but also lots of other things get in the way. But yeah, I've had to come to terms with a whole bunch of stuff, right? Like the ambitions and the dreams, I guess, but without wanting to kind of sound too down about it, they just change.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah.
I know that's something, for you've spoken about how you get a lot of satisfaction out of running a team well.
I do know, yeah.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
That's what I want to get back to.
It feels more like a conductor.
Yeah.
You couldn't play all those instruments.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you might have started out on the piano.
Yeah.
But you know that guy's better.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be amazing if you managed to bring them together with this person who's incredible on this other instrument? Exactly. Yeah. I cook a lot and I spend a lot of time thinking about how the whole process is so similar to...
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Timing is everything in cooking. I'm useless at timing.
Yeah.
Which is why I can't cook for shit.
And like less is often more, like fewer ingredients is easier to manage and not that more all of that stuff. Right. And then like the seasoning, when to know like when to stop, like you say, timing. I think there's a lot there in the process, but I've never worked in a kitchen, so I don't know if there's like that full overlap of industry, like, camaraderie. All the chefs I've seen are tattooed up and got all kinds of scars and all kinds of crazy stories, so I'm not sure. But,
and a particular look.
Yeah.
They look at you a particular way, yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I'm the same. I'm kind of like, one of the biggest thrills was just was the hum of a team doing what they're good at well, and with as few distractions and roadblocks in their way, and it's not this kind of like, it's not this loud high, but it's just this super satisfying thing that lasts for as long as you can make that last.
Yeah.
So I never thought that I would be thinking, I've set up my company so to employ people who are good at their jobs and create an environment where they are able to enjoy doing that good work. But I think that is actually more important to me now than say, this game that I specifically want to make.
Do you think that's inevitable as a result of getting older, that you don't have the... Yeah?
I think so. I've been thinking about it a lot in terms of nurturing. I think there's a lot there to be said about, having been through a lot and then wanting to be able to sort of
impart wisdom,
yeah. Or it's like the opposite of the public school system where, I went through hazing, so do you. It's the opposite of that, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, I went through some crap and I don't want anyone else to have to do that. It's not like emotionally scarring my experience in the games industry, but like, you know, there's got to be an element of that. Like, and I think, you know, there's a lot of movement towards, you know, being very aware of how we can be more inclusive, more diverse, encourage that. And I think that's super kinder, exactly, right? I think that's the best word for it, right? It's just that covers everything.
Yeah.
Just be kinder. And it frustrates me. So now I'm frustrated that we're too small to make an impact along that line.
Right.
Whereas previously I would lose sleep over the fact that we're too small to land waterways or something, right? It still bugs me that we haven't, because I still think there's a great game in there and it's our vision and we can totally do it and rah. But it's not as big a concern for me. Like, it's not something that I feel is important with without a capital I, just important.
Yeah.
And we've dabbled, you know, we've done a little bit of work with like interns and seeing how we communicate and work with people that aren't me and Roper, you know, two white guys. And that's been fascinating and really exciting. Yeah. And unexpected.
Cool. So what's next?
Well, I mean, hey, we're still being loud about waterways. Although, funny enough, like, other people have been coming to us about it. So we've survived long enough that people who we pitched it to that maybe loved the idea, because everyone loves the idea, but weren't able to kind of support or fund or whatever in the way that they would hope, now can. So there's something to be said about just being stubborn and tenacious. Just hang in.
Yeah.
And we're working on Stargrave, so we basically were able to flip Lazarus. You know, we own the game, the assets, the IP, you know, and so we were like, there's a good game in here with a ton of really good work that's been applied to it. Let's make a decision to see if we can't ship something around that. So we've been pitching it around, and we hopefully, regardless, we'll get it to early access on our own if we have to. That's the goal.
Stargrave, did you call it?
Stargrave, yeah.
So you've been pitching that at PAX?
At PAX, yeah. It seemed to go down well.
Cool.
The one-liner being very evocative. Dead Cells meets Cowboy Bebop. A lot of people sort of go, ooh, I think I know what that is. And I like it. So,
got an idea, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, like bits of work for hire here and there, you know, we're getting more involved. So doing sort of mentoring stuff, like I think we're at a point where, yeah, sure, if we had, you know, a couple of million in the bank and team of 30, we'd be tripling down on all this stuff, but we're in a really happy place. And we seem to have a reputation that is of, you know, solid people doing solid work and reliable and nice.
Yep.
And that's, you know, it's a bit sort of the girl saying that you're cute or sweet, you know, but I don't think that's necessarily the case.
No, it's about working with good, nice people.
Yeah.
I think we've had so many doors open for us because, you know, we've treated our clients with enormous amount of respect, and they've moved on to other places, and they've done introductions. Yeah, gone out of their way to do introductions because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I see someone blow up on Twitter arguing about something, I just think, God, you rest in peace. Because the industry's too small to be a dick.
Yes, 100%. 100%. It's
so
tiny.
You're currently working with Abertay as well, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, we are. Yeah.
We just
closing the loop.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they helping you with one of your projects you're currently working on, or you just set them a brief?
We were very lucky actually. We sent 2 and they both got picked.
Cool.
Which was not the plan. The plan was just to ensure one got picked. I think we might have overestimated certain things.
We should let people know what this means.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about Abertay?
Yeah, so they run in, correct me if I'm wrong because you've been doing it for long, but they run in the third year of their sort of combined courses. They throw students from art and production and game design and programming courses all together into teams, and then those teams pick briefs to to make, essentially, and
that are provided by industry.
That are provided by industry, yeah. You know, the top developers in the UK games industry.
It's a well-kept secret.
Yeah.
Because everything they do, you get to keep.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Am I going to just keep ignoring that telecoms interruption?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
It's my phone back here. I'm going to turn it off.
Okay, it's fine. It's nice. It reminds me of dialing up and to play Team Fortress 1.5. It's a nice noise. So you essentially, what I like about it, other than the fact that it's, Abertay are an incredible institution, all the students there are of a standard, that you can expect some good work. The way that it's structured, so we put the briefs in as the industry, and then students pick the ones that they want to work on. I think that's really smart.
Yep.
And then, like you say, where's the hook? Where's the catch? There is none. We keep the work. So if we wanted to be, we could be really mercenary about it. But I think, we both try to be quite fair and honest and sort of magnanimous about how we, interact with these students and give them value out of it beyond just the credit.
Yeah,
it's
quite a lot of work mentoring.
It is, yeah, absolutely. We've actually just got a whole bunch of them into our Discord. Cool. So that we can because that's where we are habitually. So to make it a bit easier, we can just
I'm in their Discord.
Oh, nice. Oh, okay, fair enough.
But yeah, if they've got questions, you just answer the questions. And
exactly.
We've just got back from going up there.
What was it like?
Presentations.
Yeah, I was gutted we couldn't go up for the first round.
We were impressed. We got 2 projects with them as well.
Nice one.
And they've got some very swanky new studios.
Really?
It's all been kitted out, and we got a tour through there. And I was thinking, God, these students are, when they go into the workplace, they're going to have a downgrade because all the kit is really nice. But yeah, we're in the 5th year doing it.
Yeah.
And for the first couple of years, we just gave briefs like, make a game in the Velocity universe.
Right.
And what came back was a lot of hard work, but quite muddled in the design direction.
Mm-hmm.
It was obvious looking back that a lot of time was wasted with people arguing or debating about who was the designer, whose idea we were going to go with. So we did that 2 years running. And in the 3rd year, the course leader got in touch and said, do you want to do it for the 3rd year? And we were like, honestly, we're not getting the value out of this that, we're putting a lot of time and effort from our side. So we thought, well, why don't we just give them, if the problem is that they bicker about what the design is, why don't we just give them one of our designs that we already know is cool and we've thought through things, and then let them make it as if it was our own team.
Yeah.
We were like, do we want to do that? Because it's our, precious IP and all that nonsense. But until the game's finished, it's worthless. Yeah. Like you say.
Yeah.
So the 3rd year we gave them briefs, and the difference was astronomical. We actually got stuff that we could pitch.
Yeah.
And if we'd won it, we would have likely hired some people from that team. And so now we're in the 5th year, and for the first time now, we've given them. So one team has a concept that we want to make, and the other team is facilitating a tool that we need for our game development.
Oh, that's really interesting.
And our current project.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting because one, they have to recognize that they're not making a game, they're making a tool for us to use, but it's a genuine collaboration with industry. And that's great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really good. And it's, in many ways, much more representative of what they'd be doing.
Yeah, indeed.
Right? Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. So you very kindly gave us a lot of tips along those lines about how to brief them. I think it was fantastic because, we've had a great experience so far with both projects. So excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. So we were going to pitch this project at GDC, and very excited about pitching at GDC. Obviously, coronavirus has happened and we're not doing GDC.
Yeah.
But that actually works out pretty well for us because the student team doesn't finish until mid-April. And our timeline is looking like mid to late April that we'll be able to finish our prototype. So, and they're working on something very technically challenging.
Yeah.
Which is going to be one of the risk questions for any publisher or platform holder. Can you actually do this? If all goes well, we'll just be able to press play and ta-da, it's been done. It's been proven.
Yeah.
Thanks to Abertay, which is just an amazing thing.
That's incredible. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been the dream, would be to offer to say as an incentive, look, we'll be pitching it, you know. We did consider it, but with everything that was going on for us, you know, it's always a consideration with a small team, isn't it? Is just where you spend your time. So I was considering putting them in for the games, London Games Week. There was a showcase or a little pitching half day or something like that. I'm not sure if there's still time, but during basically by the deadline for that event, it was just I wouldn't be sure if I'd even do a decent job of applying.
Is that April?
I think it is in April. Yeah. So it would have worked in the end, but I don't think I think the applications are shut. I do need to double check, but I'm pretty sure before I went to Boston, I was like, no, we don't have enough, both from our point of view, to even apply and do a half decent job of figuring out what it is we're promising, let alone sort of, I felt a bit reticent about putting the pressure on them. But yeah, the ideal is, you end up with something that you want to pitch. And that was something we mentioned, you know, is a prototype that we would then be able to pitch to you know, get funding for the full thing. And for us, it's been a little, basically there are two ideas that have always been sort of floating around and that we were, for whatever reason, unable to follow. Something that was a question over maybe the tonal style or the aesthetic of it, you know, is it a bit of too much of a shift for us? And what we're known for, or is it, and one of them's a bit more of is it a bit derivative? You know, are we being a bit cynical in doing it? So those things that as a company we had to make really boring decisions about, we were able to think, well, actually, we still really like them and think they'd be good games.
Try them out.
Yeah. So yeah, excited to see where it goes.
Cool.
Yeah. You
can't talk about those, I take it.
Oh, we can. Yeah, no one's got any. Yeah, I'm sure. So one of them is it's broadly a game about a fighter pilot who has essentially run away, and he's on a little desert island, and he's fishing, and he's just killing time. And it's essentially like the idea of the narrative is to take the player through from a position of feeling like they can't make a difference, and then sort of coming to terms with that feeling, and then maybe moving on from it. And the idea is that over time you spend time to fish, and that's kind of like the mechanical interest, but then the narrative is sort of fed to you through communications with other pilots that fly past. And
cool.
It's all very gentle and calm, and it's supposed to be like a warm, safe, happy space. And the ideal would be that, you know, the player actually gets multiple points or offers of moments to leave, you know, and only when they actually feel like, no, I am ready to stop playing, essentially. Right?
Wow. That's interesting.
Hopefully it hits the mark on those things. And I expect that, you know, this prototype will be some really good gameplay and touching on that, because there's a lot of iterations going to be needed, you know, from a writing point of view, from, you know, the camera angles, just everything, right? All the cinematic language of it. But it's very calm, sort of laid back. And it's massively inspired by a scene from Porco Rosso.
Okay.
Like, very specifically. I was just like, there was this feeling in me that I wanted to sort of do something about that feeling, separate to just that
what
scene in that game. So
I've seen it, but
it's I think he's literally hiding out in a volcano that's been flooded, you know, by the you know, it's a sea volcano or whatever, and he's literally just there repairing and killing time,
right? And
then he takes off. He's not going through that quite emotional journey, I don't think, but there was just something about Ghibli movies, you know, especially when they hit that kind of, I don't know, they give me a sense of sort of melancholy for something I've never experienced, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the more powerful examples of that.
Okay.
And I love their visual style. Until Ni no Kuni and maybe Breath of the Wild, I've never seen it really done to the level that I think it could be done. So I was just interested to sort of explore that. But it's very much not what people would think we would make.
Sure. So if you get that right, that's going to be very interesting.
I hope so.
The idea that sounds like a massage that goes on forever until you're ready to quit.
Yeah, essentially. And I think that there'll be a point at which the kind of the prepared narrative sort of comes to a stop. But the idea that maybe the player isn't emotionally at the end is an interesting, there's going to be an interesting space there. You know, I know that with enough time, we could make that a really good experience. I don't want to say fun because it's sort of slightly not the right word, right? But you can make a good, compelling experience out of that.
Yeah.
And then...
Hang on, I turned my phone off.
That's what they want you to think. That's what they want you to think. But yeah, that bit, but who are we to say stop, right? And in a lot of hardcore games, a lot of core sort of gamers games, you get that New Game Plus, and that's the way of doing it. You just re-engage on a different level, or the world's open now, you just go and do what you want if you happen to have enjoyed it enough. But the idea that this is sort of intrinsically part of the question that the game's asking you, you know, are you ready?
Right.
Now that we've gone through that.
Very interesting. So have you got a writer working on that?
I believe they've assigned, I don't want to say which person, because I'll just
don't drop a minute.
No. Also, I just don't want to. I can't quite remember, so I'm not gonna get it wrong. That would be a shame. But it'll be really interesting to see where they've gone with that. And I've given them quite a lot of the mechanics and the scope. We've been quite specific about,
right? But
that bit we've left a little open because I actually want to see what someone else makes of it. And in terms of them responding to the brief we gave, because there were a couple of bits that I didn't even mention Porco Rosso. I did mention Porco Rosso, but not that scene, sorry. And they landed on it and ran with it. So that was great. I was like, okay, so this is resonating on a level. That the thing that I love about that scene isn't just me, because what I've prepared around this has pointed them to it, and they've gone, yeah, cool. So I'm like, okay, that's exciting. That's an interesting little experiment. Yeah. So
do they have a narrative course? It's just...
I don't believe so. They must have a module, I'd expect, but I didn't actually do any due diligence on that.
It just feels like that sounds like you would need some good writing on that. Yeah. So can you talk about the other one? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. The other one is somewhere between Crazy Golf and Super Monkey Ball.
Okay.
So on the other end, we were just like...
Arcade.
No one's made a monkey ball game for PC.
Right.
We really like it. Lots of other people like it. So someone should make one. But at the same time, we've taken this as an opportunity again to kind of ask, you know, rather than just, hey, make Super Monkey Ball, but make it a different animal. I think there's probably a bit of room in Super Monkey Ball, maybe Marble Madness, looking way back. These kind of games where you control a ball that is a bit out of control and turning that into something,
cool,
interesting and mechanically speaking, but in such a way that ultimately, if it's like this doesn't work, it's not actually that fun. Strip out all the bits, you're left with Super Monkey Ball.
Yeah, hopefully,
or something not quite derivative, interesting, funny, cute, arcadey. Hitting all the right notes, but.
We've got, I'm a big fan of marble runs, just the idea of a marble run. When you say, what did you say? Did you say Marble Madness?
Yeah.
Is that a marble run game?
Not really.
No.
I'm thinking
of the toy.
Got in my head.
I'm thinking of the toy. What's the toy that you... bit of plastic toy and you lead a marble through it.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I'm not sure. I guess Marble Run.
I think it was called Marble Run.
And there's like Screwball Scramble.
That's it, Screwball Scramble.
Oh, is that? Oh, right, okay. Yeah, yes. And it's got like little flippers and you've basically got one button that fires everything on the whole board, but you just wait for the right moment. Yes, yeah, that was great.
I love that.
Yeah, brilliant game.
And so our first video game that we pitched, so going back a bit, we pitched to Sony an ARG, which is the game that we founded FuturLab for, which we've yet to make. And Sony were like, yeah, love your ideas, but we're not going to fund that game because millions and you've done nothing. Jokers. But we will work with you. We'll find a way of working with you. So they gave us dev kits and we got, licensed to work with them. The project we worked on ultimately got cancelled. But by that point, we'd got in really close with Relentless Software and they believed in us as a small team. And so when that game got canned, or that project got canned, I pitched to Relentless Software a little music game that was about balls that would drop from the sky and then bounce on ledges. And when they bounce, they make a note. And so you've got bouncing balls bouncing around the world making a piece of music.
Oh,
We
lovely.
called it Drop the Beat. And it was really cool.
Yeah.
And we were making that for PSP.
Oh, wow.
So we'd gone from making this ARG for Heavy Rain for Sony, which was exciting in its own way, but it wasn't a video game.
Mm-hmm.
It was an ARG, so web stuff, to making a proper, video game
Yeah.
for PSP. And I think we got to alpha, and it was all working and it was all sounding great. And then PS Minis got announced. And overnight, a game that we were going to be selling for about $11.99 suddenly didn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so Relentless canned it. So yeah, it was failure after failure, after many failures before that time.
Yeah.
And I had to let everyone go. So we were a team of about 6, I think, at that point.
It's horrible.
And we'd taken on, because we had this big exciting project with Sony, we took on this 3-story office because we were expecting to grow. Based on the model of Relentless, they did extremely well with Sony's backing. And so we actually started this new company called FuturLab Meta with the founders of Relentless. And we took on this 3-story office. They were like, yeah, you're going to grow, it's fine. Sony's plowing loads of money in. It's going to be cool. Then it got canned. And we had a 9-year lease on this 3-story office.
Oh my God.
And I had to let everyone go. And so it was just me rattling around in this 3-story office. And I had to move out of my flat that I was staying with one of my friends and one of our employees to go and live in the office.
Oh my God.
So I was like, this is fucked.
That's really crazy.
So I slept on the ground floor, very, very spooky, living in an office, on 3 floors, in the middle of sort of an industrial estate type of feel.
Oh gosh, it seems like it's like what's that Will Smith movie that was about the apocalypse?
Oh yeah, I Am
vampires and
Legend.
stuff. I Am Legend, a bit like that. You got like a little corner with mannequins for friends.
Yeah,
living the life in that one little corner and just this big desolate office.
Yeah, I had a Garfield teddy or whatever. And so
I had no idea. That is
it got real.
That's character building.
It was character building. So I was in there, and because the only place to really stay was the sofa in the lounge area, sleeping on the sofa. But that meant that the residential area backing onto the office, they could look out their window and see someone sleeping on the sofa in this office block.
Yeah.
So someone reported the fact that I was staying there. So, oh God, pressure's building now.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about that period was I had apart from the lease around my neck, I had no other responsibilities.
Right. Yeah.
I had no other wages to pay. And so I thought, well, and up until that point, I'd been on a project treadmill.
Yeah.
So we started off in flash work. So timescales of maybe 3 months maximum for a project, often just a week. So you're constantly trying to get work, and it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And I just desperately wanted to get my own IP underway. So yeah, we during that period, I'd managed to hire a programmer to make Drop the Beat with me, just me and him.
Mm-hmm.
That got canned, and I was like, right, I just need to go and get a job. I was a kind of a programmer.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call myself a programmer now, but a Flash script kiddie.
Yeah, yeah.
Back in those days, I could actually make a decent wedge being a Flash programmer.
Yeah.
So I thought I'll go and get a freelance job on site somewhere, and I'll use the very well-paid fees to pay somebody else to make Coconut Dodge.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
Wow. I mean, there's bootstrapping, and then
there was
sleeping in the office.
Proper bootstrap. Yeah.
Wow.
And I got loud on Coconut Dodge.
Yeah.
Back in those days, it was lots of websites. They could make a difference.
Yeah. Was it angry loud? Was it anger that fueled the loud?
It was desperation.
Desperation.
Yeah. Desperation with a smile.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, so because we'd done quite a lot of advertising stuff, I sort of spotted the way to be in communications. And so I was just extremely positive and upbeat about Coconut Dodge, about it was how it was the most fun game you'd ever play this month.
Yeah.
And for some reason people listened, and it got a lot of traction. And then that came out. I wasn't particularly proud of it, but it actually did okay. And to this day, it's actually the best-selling FuturLab game.
Yeah.
But I learned a big lesson there that, if we'd had a decent game and I'd put the same amount of effort into marketing, we could have actually made a big splash.
Yeah.
So that's where Velocity came from. Yeah, and it's just been a steady build since then, really.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of talk about, it's hit driven, this and that and the other, and I just don't buy it, frankly. Like, the difference between, like, the amount of sales that you need to make to support 2-3 people is not a lot.
Right.
It's not a lot, really. If you come to terms with the fact that, the 90% of the games that aren't selling anything, that really do affect the data that you see touted around a lot, are terrible and not marketed at all. It's literally just someone somewhere made a game and put it out, and that's it. And that's fine, because that's all they wanted to do. It's not, it's not to kind of crap on their achievements.
That's an uplifting sentiment.
I mean, I think, it's just, I don't like the difference. The difference is not that great. I think you see games now where you look at what's trending on Steam or on Twitch, and you look at maybe the top 10 or 20. It doesn't take much for you to go, I've never heard of that. I don't know anyone who's ever heard of that. I've never heard of the studio or the publisher, or any of it. And I'm Googling it and it doesn't come up except for on the store page.
Mm-hmm.
What's that about? So there's always this.
Yeah.
And I think
that's the black magic.
That's the black magic. But it's on top of, okay, so there are fewer websites and stuff, but there are many more outlets for your game to get awareness than there were, that are more effective, I would say, now. What's happened is there's been a culling of the ones that couldn't adapt or whatever. So you've got your IGNs and whatnot, but then you've also got all of your streamers and whatnot, so these games that I've never heard of, that no one in the industry who are, on the inside have ever heard of, that are selling millions or whatever of copies, they're also there next to, it's not affecting all the other games that are being made by the people in the industry. I don't necessarily think the ratio has shifted. Right. I don't think.
So when you used the word indie-pocalypse a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Do you think that actually happened?
Not really.
No.
Okay. I think it was a perception. So from this is I'm very aware that of people's situation affecting how they see things, right? Like I can only see what's around me. So at that point, it was post Tango Fiesta launch, I believe. So, and we realised it hadn't sold what we'd hoped, and it wasn't as good as we'd hoped. But I'd struggled with the idea that it was some kind of great storm that was going to come in and wipe everything out except the few on the boat. Because it didn't either, I don't think. I think that a lot of people had egos checked, probably us included a little bit. I think it's just the landscape shifted and people didn't know what was going on. And that's fine. But it's also going to keep happening,
As it always does.
Yeah. There'll be another thing. It's probably already happened. It's probably TikTok. I don't know. We're seeing games now come out of the mod scene again. Right? Of mods. Sorry, of games that came out of mod. Like, the cycle is just repeating over and over. And I think that what we're experiencing is the fact that your bubble has always existed, and these other people's bubbles have always existed. But now there are like interconnecting tubes, and so you kind of get an idea that they're there. Whereas before, maybe you thought that everything was in this.
Right.
And that happens in a business sense, you know, in a creative sense, in a consumer sense, you know. Just today, I was watching a video of a new game that's an action roguelike, because we're making one, and it looked fantastic. I was like, the art, the animation, the style, everything, the ceremony. It was just like, wow,
juice.
Like, this is beautiful. I was like, who are these people? I've not heard of them, not familiar. And then I looked back and I was like, oh, they've actually made 3 games. It's just I hadn't heard of them. Yeah. And oh, they've all sold pretty well.
Right.
And it's like, I'm up on stuff, right? Like I spend a meaningful amount of time every week being aware of what's going on in the industry.
Wow.
But apparently the sites that I visit and the forums that I go to and the Reddit threads or whatever, that's not all there is. You know, these things aren't being successful because magic.
Yeah.
You know, there is a route to consumers that I'm not aware of or whatever, and that's fine. That's cool. You know?
This is something that the route to consumer that we're having to learn, because traditionally our client has been the publisher or the platform holder.
Yeah.
We make them happy. If the players like it, but our job is to make the client happy.
Yes.
Whereas now we're thinking, right, we need to actually look at who's buying games, what can we do for them so they buy our games.
Yeah.
Now that might seem funny for a company that's 16 years old, 16 years in, you know, we're finally looking at the market, but that's just the way that we've evolved.
For at least 8 of those, your market was, like you say, the publisher, the platform holder.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's fortunate that we have the means to establish that relationship with the end user. But it's all new for us. We've only just hired, you know, a marketing department, and it's an eye-opener. There were so many things, so many aspects to this business that we were completely blind to. It's very interesting.
I'm sat here nodding as if I know what they are. Do you know what I mean? But I know.
Well,
that,
at least you're out
exist.
there reading and look, like you say, you spend a considerable amount of time each week studying the landscape. I don't do that. I don't know whether I'm just lazy or I'm just too busy doing other shit, but I'm very much like this.
Yeah. I mean, I think I could benefit from being a bit more like that. You know, like we've been playing around with 4-day weeks recently, just through January and February, just to sort of see.
How's that going?
Interesting. Yeah, like it's great. Phil, brilliant for it. But at the same time, I'm definitely working harder and like more efficiently in those 4 days. So now I'm like, why don't I just do that for 5? I'm not going to be more tired. Like,
you sure?
Well, we'll find out. Right. Hopefully.
So it's just a test, is it?
Yeah, it's a little test, and I mean, I put it on a scale between, you know, American style 9 to 7 p.m. 5 or 6 days a week kind of crazy work ethic thing over here, and then there's removing a whole day or more from your scheduled week here. And I want to kind of definitely up this end. I want to sort of explore that, you know. So maybe we look at Fridays being, it's just up to you what you do.
Yeah, personal project day.
Personal project day, yeah. And maybe, you know, with just 2 of us, it might be that we both go, oh, let's work on the same thing together, but it's different, you know, or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to have a little bit of a play. You know, keeping an eye on the company we want to build, right? Yeah. The kind of place we want to have people work. But yeah, I noticed that the thing that I've dropped most out of my usual days was broadly browsing, right? But it was very much, you know, right, what's the news, what's happening, who's bought who, and you know, what games are coming, what's interesting, what haven't I heard of, all that stuff. And I just, that got dropped basically by the wayside. So I've been a little bit like, oh, so I went to PAX and people are talking about industry news. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that.
Missed that.
Yeah, normally I'm the one, you know. But yeah, you just got to pick your battles. You got to pick what you're good at, what you have to do. And then if you're in a position where you can bring someone in to do the stuff that either you don't want to do or you think they can do better, amazing. Absolutely incredible. Yeah.
We're on a good spot. Definitely.
Yeah.
The next thing we're going to hire is a community manager because, that seems somewhat important in this world.
Yes.
To have someone doing that. And it was me for a couple of years. Full time on Velocity 2X, pretty much.
Yeah.
To the point where it was creating friction because the levels weren't getting made. So we've got this cool mechanics, James, but there's no game here because we've got no levels. Maybe you want to make some levels?
Yeah, maybe.
Hang on, I'm on Twitter. I'm very
do your
busy.
other job, you know? Yeah. No, exactly right. It's really tough. I think. So something we're looking at is, the next hire is going to be a programmer. So we've got 2, because I think that's like really you need 2 to make a game. If you're going to put a number to it. It'd be great to have an artist on tap who's like a house style. Maybe that's a thing that's worth considering. But genuinely, up there is employee 4, 5, 6, 7 is a community manager or someone
Producer.
or a producer, right?
Or is that you?
Well, I'm the producer at the moment, but that would genuinely be a big lift, because that conflict between time and creativity is so core.
Yeah.
And it can easily just go one way or the other too much. And it really has such an impact on the whole project. But yeah, like our ideal would be someone who's a producer who's, as we said, gregarious and happy and up on all of the social stuff so that they could combine the 2.
Okay.
Or someone who's proven as a social media person, community manager, who's interested in the process, like the serious business of making games.
Right.
Because the way I'm seeing it in a small company, at least, is you've got your dev team and you've got your community. And if you're saying that the dev team isn't directly talking, which we would have anyway, but if you're conduit between the 2, if you're building a conduit, who better than the person who knows both the schedule and is being paid to be excited about the game, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so coming from either of those sides, I think would work.
Going to make a better game.
Yeah.
More informed by what people want.
Yeah. Because that's a conduit that goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
It has to. So, yeah.
Cool.
We'll see.
So what are you doing at the moment?
So we've just drawn a line under the demo for Stargrave that we're pitching with. We've sort of gone, right, that's...
At PAX, has anyone said, it's really interesting, come back when you've done more?
Yes.
Like a vertical slice?
Yeah. And it's like pretty close to a vertical
Is
slice.
it?
It's not far off.
Cool.
I'll send it over.
Okay, obviously you've done all that work on Lazarus, right?
Yes.
Right.
So yeah, we
Got a head start.
We were saying like 70 to 80% of the assets are probably there.
Right.
Not implemented in this vertical slice, but they exist, and here's a demonstration of a lot of them, and like the core loop and touching on the retention loop, and just I think it's not a vertical slice, but it's like a pretty good bite of one.
Yeah.
So, and we sort of said to ourselves, look, we could just keep on going with this, but is anything that we've left out really going to convince anyone if we put it in, or if we adjust this thing to what they've suggested? And the answer is no. Like it's just no. So, but we're really happy with where it's at. So that's exciting. So we're like, right, good. And then we've got 6 weeks of work for hire lined up, which is really cool, on a little project that came out of nowhere, and we're quite excited about that. And that's playing to our strengths as well. And for us, a lot of work for hire, it's nice because we're kind of like, well, I just get to be a designer or producer or whatever I've been hired to be.
Yeah.
And similarly for Mr. Andrew Roper himself, he gets to just do some code and not worry about it, which is cool.
Cathartic.
So we're just, it is. It really is. It's like a busman's holiday, right? Or whatever the phrase is. I hope that's not a euphemism. I've always wondered if that's a euphemism. It's nothing like a busman's holiday, Andrew. We're going to have to bleep that out.
I think you're thinking about carry on busman holiday, maybe.
Right, yeah, maybe. Gosh. But yeah, so we're in a nice little spot where we're sort of ticking over, and we've got some time that we can wait in because, as you know, signing things takes forever.
Yeah.
But we've got some interest in motorways as well from various things.
Sweet.
So watch this space. We might sign it yet. Yeah.
Man, I don't think... So what you were saying about you can draw a line backwards from throughout every effort you made to do networking or business development has resulted in something.
Yeah.
We've got the opposite. We've got an invisible line that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
We religiously go and pitch at GDC and we pitch at Gamescom.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we've ever won anything out of that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just get luck. Stuff lands in our lap. And
But there's never any, like, this
There
person
might-
saw that pitch and...
it's probably like, you know, that secret corridor in the Matrix where you open a door and it's like,
Yeah.
there must be that happening somewhere.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we've got a certain track record and reputation and stuff, so
Yeah.
people come to us. But it drives me crazy thinking that all of this effort that we put into pitching and business development, if we just sat and crossed our arms and didn't do any of that stuff, and instead of going to GDC, we just got pancakes in Brighton,
Yeah.
would we still be able to continue doing business? You know, just,
I've got
it's
to believe
maddening thinking that.
it can't be true.
I know it can't be true, can it?
No. But it is maddening because there is no real evidence one way or other. It's still an assumption, right? And you want to prove that assumption. Yeah, I get that 100%.
So there was a moment last GDC, was it last year? I think it was the year before. We went and pitched a game to Curve.
Mm.
And they said, do you know what? This is a really cool mechanic, but it's too rich for us. But if you manage to find a way of tying it in with an IP, maybe it would be a goer.
Mm.
We're like, okay. About 2 months later, we got an email from Curve saying, we've got the Peaky Blinders license. Do you fancy pitching for a Peaky Blinders game? We're putting it out to 10 developers. We'll pick the one that we like working with. So we thought, okay, well, let's come up with something. And then after about a week of thinking about that, we realized that the game that we'd pitched them previously at GDC would actually be a good fit if we tweaked it slightly.
Yeah.
And we thought, maybe someone at Curve internally had talked about the fact that they had this meeting with us and therefore reached out to us.
Yeah.
No.
No.
It was completely unrelated. It was pure luck.
That's absurd.
And that was the one moment where I thought, okay, GDC was worthwhile.
Yeah. It's like, no, demonstrably not. Sorry. Yeah.
It's very weird.
Go and get your pancakes.
It's very weird.
That's making me itch.
I know. Maybe it's because we don't do the kind of social stuff as much as we could be. But yeah, pretty much all the projects we've won have been a result of personal contact, spotting an opportunity and getting in touch personally and going and seeing somebody face to face and saying, this is what we want to do.
Yeah.
And building a relationship that way. Yeah, so it's weird.
It is all relationships. That's the thing. And I'm sure every industry is the same, really, because we're people and we're social creatures and all of that stuff. But
maybe we should go to GDC next year because it's not happening this year. That postponement is like lols.
Yeah. Interesting.
Maybe we should go next year and just do parties. Like
just do parties with a tablet with an amazingly bright screen.
Yeah.
And just load up everything on it.
You know, you can get video business cards.
No.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Saw those a couple of years ago. Wafer thin. There's a video playing on it.
That's incredible.
That's awesome, isn't it?
That's really
We should
cool.
get those and just go. Here's our game.
That is
at the
really
bar
cool.
At 2 a.m. when everyone's wasted.
Yeah. Did it make them make noise so that it wakes them up in the middle of the night, and then they'll remember for sure.
That's a good idea.
Sure. It's not a bad idea actually. The whole video business cards. I'll have to look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. GDC's funny. We've been twice to Spilt Milk. I've only been 3 times in total. But I mean, it's obviously its uses that everyone goes to it.
Yeah.
You know, beyond that, debatable, to be honest.
I suppose the fact that we go and it's a reminder that we exist.
Yes. Yeah. That's the thing. I think for us, PAX was very much... So a couple of things lined up. And one is we are aware that we are Eurocentric. And we need to break out of that. And secondly was we needed a deadline to help spur us on with our prototype work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd just carry on forever. So the two things lined up nicely. I would certainly want to exhibit there at one or two of the PAXs a couple of years in a row to sort of like become, known, for want of a better word, like people to get familiar with you, because everybody's there, all the devs. There's so many devs. It's good. It's good.
We did PAX East in Seattle. Is that PAX East?
It was Boston this year, but I don't know if it was East last year.
Hang on, Seattle's
There's
West.
PAX.
We did PAX West.
Oh, okay.
Whichever one we went to, we were in Seattle.
So there's West, South, and East.
Okay.
We
did West.
Cool.
And I was astonished by how giant it was.
Right. Because is that the original, or is PAX the original? Like the PAX
Not sure.
South.
There's too many for me to keep track of.
It's a bit bonkers, isn't it? But it was big.
Huge.
Yeah.
Not as big as Gamescom.
No.
Because Gamescom is like a space station.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
I can't get my head around it. We haven't done Gamescom as a stand yet.
No, I don't think we have either. Just business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough one because they take so much out of you. They're expensive, and you can't really measure the impact. Even when you just go for business, right? You can't really. It's not like you go, oh look, we got a little sales bump.
Actually, do you know what? The Yuki stand at Gamescom was great.
Yeah.
Because that's not cheap. But and beforehand we were like, really? I mean, we could just get a hotel, invite people to the hotel, which is what we do at GDC generally. We get a hotel suite, invite people to us. But last year we took the Yuki Gamescom stand, which was not a stand at all. It's just a table and a couple of chairs. And it was the unplanned interactions with other business people that was the most value.
Yeah. You're in a little hub where lots of people are having meetings and everyone's got a little bit of time between them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Totally worth it.
Yeah. That's one of the biggest things about, so we moved into an office. We'd been remote since we'd started. We moved into an office a year and a month ago with Payload, who make TerraTech.
Oh, cool.
And they run the Tentacle stand, which is at EGX and all kinds of stuff. They basically just do nice things for small companies. And so they'd moved office a couple of times since they were founded, and they're in this place in Farringdon in Baker's Yard. And it's amazing now. They've got two buildings that join. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 floors worth, because one's got one more.
Wow.
I think there's 8 companies now there. They've been there for 2.5 years, I think, maybe 3. But until we moved in last January, there was only one other company in there with them. But it's just gone and shot up, and it's amazing. Like, we literally have gotten work from it.
Cool.
And some of the people there are people who they're my first business card, what I got, from my first event as a little, fresh-faced indie and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, it's just those.
Is that like a co-working space, or?
So they have co-working space specifically,
right? But
then they're just very, very cheap desks.
Okay.
So and they're super flexible about it. So I think one company's in there like 3 or 4 days a month, sort of thing. That's what they've paid for, and then we're permanent and everything in between. But they do have they have like plans for like a dedicated co-working space because there's a lot of demand for that. But that sort of hub didn't exist in London because there's lots of big companies who don't need a hub because they get all those benefits, from just having their staff and all the network connections there and whatnot, and then and skills and all that stuff. And then on the lower end, you've got the indies, and sort of in between, everyone was like, well, it's expensive being in London. You can't. So everyone was working remotely, occasional days at a pub or a co-working space, but it's not the same because you're not there all the time for that one moment when that person was in.
Yeah.
But now we've got that, and they're building it, and it's incredible. Like, it's tremendous. We're not. I genuinely think we're not the only people that have actually got work from being there. So there's got to be something to it. Hopefully we'll get the opportunity to sort of like put something back in at some point. Because it's you gotta pay it forward, pay it backwards. I don't know.
I've got a question. If you were to start a business today in games, would you start a business in games? What would be your first move?
Okay, I would start a business. And my first move would be, so this is me, not just some in abstract.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I would absolutely start a business, and I would absolutely I would get all of the people that I've been working with that I want to work with, you know, committed to it and like lined up as this company, and I would pitch that around the company and projects like 1, 2, and 3, right? You know, as a kind of like a lump.
To who?
To people like, is it Chris Lee?
Okay.
David Lauke, people who, sure, they're in, you know, seed funding, Series A, all that, like stuff I don't actually really understand, I don't think, but who get games, who've done games, who understand how weird it is and all of the strange kind of concoctions and you know, accidents that can lead to the sorts of success that you want. But I don't know that they'd be that interested, because I still think I'm most interested in building games that aren't mobile, free to play, etc.
That was my next question.
Hot stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just not. There's an appeal in making mobile games because they're fast, and I'm a very impatient person.
Are they fast? I mean, you've got the 10% that the player actually interacts with,
Yeah.
and the 90% is shitloads of database,
True.
stats tracking, and mind-numbing stuff.
Yeah, you pay other people to do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And I'm still sort of stuck in that romantic thing about video games.
Stay romantic, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I try to.
There is a place for us, I think.
Yeah. It's that
It's not on a yacht, but there is a place for us.
It's not on a yacht. No, you're right. But it might be in a nice little two up, two down somewhere. You know,
Yeah.
You're happy. You know, you got your dog.
Indeed.
And yeah, exactly. Your nice holiday. Well, I think I just like, it's funny because without being, I don't want to be like, it's not maudlin. I don't want to be. I also don't want to. I don't really like the idea of nostalgia too much, because I think it's a bit. It's a limiter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a soft hug when you should be getting a kick up the arse, perhaps. But I was attracted to the industry reading about it in Edge and reading about games in Superplay, you know, import Japanese RPGs that never got translated, and obsessing over screenshots and not knowing everything about it. And I don't know everything about it, I'm not saying that, but I do know enough that the magic's gone from most games, because I make them, so of course, you know, my tastes have refined, etc. But I still think that there is a way of recapturing that sense of discovery about a game and excitement about a game for modern audiences. And that's something that's sort of been niggling away at my lizard brain, I don't know if it's back there, for some time. And I talk about it as much as possible because I struggle with it. But I know that the world where there were X websites and Y number of magazines, and that's how you got your information, that's what made it exciting, because it was limited. And I had much more time then, but the richness of the media that I was exposed to about the games that I was excited about was also
rich.
Well, that was the thing, and it was rich in my head as well. I didn't get videos. You know, I remember obsessing over IGN's video coverage of E3 and going, I'm only interested in the direct feed, the ones that say screen, like off screen and direct feed, all the cam stuff I'm not interested, you know, like, and that sort of escalation, you know. But now, obviously, it's so easy to find out everything about a game. You know, so for me, I need to figure out where 12 to 18-year-olds get excited about and why they get excited about games, so that I can then relate to it and get all in. You know, because it's not. I don't think it's scarcity of information. I don't think. But then Apex Legends comes along out of nowhere and goes, "You didn't know about us, and aren't we great? And isn't it exciting?" And wah, you know, so. It's just a constant sort of...
I think you can go mad thinking like that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you've got to ignore the outliers, right? You absolutely have to. You can't look at Apex and go, we'll do that. You can't look at all the ones you've never heard of that have sold nothing, because if you do what they do, you know, or if you think that that's representative, again, you'll go mad.
But even the idea of trying to understand what goes on in a modern 14-year-old's brain.
Yeah.
From what I gather, it's trying not to put a foot out of line.
Right.
To be as vanilla as possible, because otherwise you're going to get called out and there's going to be some embarrassing video on social media about you acting like an idiot.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not... Yeah, it's certainly don't try to emulate them.
Billie Eilish.
Right.
She's popular.
Yep.
Yes, we're making our new game that we're pitching and working on at the moment. We've sort of modelled the main character, who's male, after some traits in Billie Eilish's videos and songs.
Right. Yeah.
Because and this might not be her intent, and this might not be informed by her lyrics, but what I get from watching her videos is the sentiment, you're going to disappoint me, so let's start there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then let's build a relationship from that.
Right.
So that's our character.
Interesting.
Disappointed with the world.
Yeah.
Disappointed with authority. Disappointed with adults.
I think that resonates.
Let's build on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that seems to be a pretty solid bet.
Absolutely.
But maybe by the time we finish that game, Billie Eilish will be very uncool. I hope not.
All the world's woes will have been solved, and no one's feeling down at all about anything. Yeah. No, but I think that's really smart, and I think that's what I'm trying to get at is like, if I could figure out not the mechanical way of talking to, what's the method? Is it TikTok? Where do I go? Where do I go with my content? It's about that. What's the emotion?
Yeah.
And maybe that's the thing. Maybe for me, it was the scarcity of information meant that I would, I imagined stuff and got excited about things, and that the intrigue was part of the package. And now that it's not, what has supplanted that? What is the inciting emotion for our audience, right? And I think that's worth thinking about. I think that's a smart move with your character there, though. That's exactly on point. But yeah, like you say, you gotta ship before the world fixes itself.
It's not going to happen, is it?
No, it's really no, it's not.
So you still got, is it Nicholas Lovell on your board?
Yes, yeah,
and he is, from what I remember, Mr. Free to Play.
Well, this is the thing. He unfortunately was very good at communicating that he was Mr. Free to Play, and has made good money being a consultant in that sense. But actually, his skills have always been around digital goods.
Okay.
Right. So he's, especially his first book, The Curve, I think it was called. Yeah, he's done The Curve and the Pyramid, because, and, he was looking at industries outside of games to draw examples that would be applicable, just because a lot of the problem that we saw as an industry trying to move into accepting free to play was a lot of sort of stick in the mud, but we're different, or we've already done it this way, or it's it's nickel and diming, all these kind of sentiments. But by pointing at, books have done it, Amazon, Kindle, there's been a cost to it, but also there's an opportunity that wasn't there that's been built around it, and things have begun to thrive that weren't there before. And even more traditional. I won't try and think of an example because I'll have misquoted, but there are examples of physical goods like that aren't digital, where they've just gone, here, have this one for free, and then we'll build a relationship with the consumer, and that's the important thing. And of course, the obvious one, not the one that he used, is drugs, right? And that's the problem, is that most times people kind of go, gateway drug and all this kind of thing. But the fundamental thing is a sound business move. You give someone something that they want,
the taste,
and you build a relationship with, so that they think you're the only people that are going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And then you have a customer for life, and that's it. And just getting into that, and digital being, digital games just gave us this incredible opportunity to really, really double down on that. So he did tremendously well in that sphere early on, but he's consulted with some of the giants of some of the biggest moves.
He literally wrote the book on it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he branded himself, but now he's very much he's aware of he's aware of the market, the product, the relationship, the design that's inherent, like the changes that are inherent there, and adapting to that. And he's I believe shipped products in that sort of design role as well. So yeah, he kind of gets labelled with that still, but it's.
So I'm interested, because he's a board member.
Yes.
Whether there's some pressure there. Andrew, just go make a free-to-play game.
No, none whatsoever. No. Genuinely, cool. Yeah. He's keen to know the business model, because that's always relevant, right?
Yeah.
But there's never a push to one or the other. It's always the game, the idea, what's the loop. Let's get that down. Who's it for?
Cool.
Okay, and all of those things affect how you might sell it. So yeah.
Cool. What else can we talk about?
Do you know this fly? This tiny fly.
You got flies?
Maybe the fly. It was crawling over there a minute ago. What's going on? Maybe it's the fly that's got the phone.
Yeah, tiny little Nokia. Yeah, I guess it just comes back to. So my question about would you start a business now? What would you do? I guess what's your opinion of the development industry or the video game development industry at the moment? Because it felt like there was a golden opportunity a few years ago, and it feels tough for me. I'd be scared of starting a video game company now, just because the people that we've pitched to recently have said, look, if it's not tens of millions, we're not interested. It's got to be this certain level of quality in order to punch through, because there's so much out there. And it feels like a publisher's marketplace where there's tons of people getting games almost finished. Whether they've worked at a AAA studio and got a load of bank and they've left 3 veterans and they can turn around a vertical slice in 6 months.
Yeah.
Publishers pretty much have the pick of the bunch. So it's much harder to just... That's my feeling.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, in certain ways it is, absolutely. But... So the I feel like that's almost like a constant sort of churn, that motion,
Or like every 5 years or something, or
something like that. Yeah. And I don't know if it is tied to consoles necessarily, but there's the rising costs, and then something happens inevitably to sort of like make it a little bit easier, and fingers crossed. And there's a new market that comes up that nobody expected, or
yes,
we're seeing a lot of interest from the sort of financial industry, right, in games right now. Like investors are coming from outside of games.
Is that because
and
of blockchain?
Sort of learning about it.
Is that because of blockchain?
I don't know.
No.
I think maybe that might have made people aware,
right?
But I don't think that that's like the driving force.
Okay.
But companies like Team 17 and was it Sumo floated successfully, and things like that, which are really like, oh, okay, you're not just nerds making games. You are, as you claim to be, on a par with film, at least, on a par with music, at least. You know, so that's good. And then for me, there's always this idea of if you're in a position, if you've got something up your sleeve, and then something comes along, that's how a lot of the kind of breakouts happen.
Yeah.
So it's never about planning. It's never about having gone, this is what we're going to do, and we've done it.
Yeah.
So the Epic Store and their big old wallets, that's changing lives for developers left, right, and center. But it's not something you can be sad about missing, because they didn't plan it. They were just there at the right time, and that's fine. Because there'll be another thing, and another thing, and another thing. I'm constantly reminded about. We did mobile stuff when we should have been doing Steam. For some good reasons we did mobile stuff, but we should have been doing it on Steam, and we didn't. And then so we missed the boat. People. Is that
because you just didn't realize at the time, or because you were just too busy doing the thing you were doing?
We were busy doing the thing we were doing, and then the opportunity, like the ability to get it over, didn't really crystallize, and then other opportunities happened, and we followed those. Yeah. And then looking back, because at the time it was an opportunity, but it wasn't like, it was just, it wasn't going to change. And of course it changed, but back then, if we'd put like Hardlines or Crunch or Smash the Block and just put the effort into releasing it and made it good, and it got on Steam, just by getting on Steam, and then if you're good, it goes even higher, right? And then you've got like I'm building a foundation, right? Which we've never got to a point of having like cash in the bank and being able to plan, but you can't really plan for these things other than having something up your Steam. Well, okay, so we have with Peck and Run, yeah.
Congratulations.
So, fingers crossed. Who knows?
But it's a smart move.
And that's with the Abertay stuff too, right?
Oh, is it?
Well, maybe. Like, so,
Oh, I see what you mean.
the idea
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
finding a way to build a thing that you think answers a market need or whatever, or is just a cool game. Let's keep it romantic. It's just a cool game. And you're able to just sort of go, do you know what? Here, wholesale with a number. We've put all the thought into it, and all you need to do is say yes, and that's great. And Apple Arcade is another one that no one was expecting to happen, and that and Epic Store happened in the same year, or something. So, it is frustrating, and again, it makes me itch thinking there's no like way to actually plan for this stuff and actually have it mean that it will work. But that's life, isn't it?
Yep.
So I kind of have to get used to it, and so with Peck and Run, we've just costed up like what it would take our concept artist to like do a paint over of where we would want to take it, so we can just hire some like really good 3D artist and just get it done, and then we'll know, spend a couple of days or here and there sort of figuring out the scope of it, and then we've got a little thing that when the time is right, hopefully we can just go plop.
Dosh.
There you go.
Yeah.
And see what happens. And it seems like platform plays are the ones right now,
We both
Xbox,
missed the Switch,
right?
didn't we?
We missed the Switch. We did.
We knew that it was just a series of unfortunate events that we missed the Switch, but we knew it when it arrived. We've got to get Velocity 2X on there.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't move fast enough.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. But
busy doing other things.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's always it, right? We were making an MMO, so it's just so irrelevant, But you never know. You never know. There'll be more. There's Microsoft throwing their money around for exclusives. Sony, it would be a decent bet to think that they might start doing the same for their next console. I don't know, but if one of you is, then the others have to.
They should.
They should.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be just things that come out of left field or that no one really knows about. That said, I do want to go to DICE one year because I have a feeling everybody knows and tells everyone at those things.
Right, you haven't never been to DICE?
No, I think that might
be the one.
Yeah.
That's the one where all the business gets done.
We should pick a year and go together.
Right.
And then, just be like, hey.
Yeah.
We divvy it up.
Tag team it.
Yeah. And then we're just like...
That's a good idea.
It's a good idea.
We could pitch each other's projects as well to get maximum coverage.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's an idea.
We floated an idea with another studio about doing a sort of like a boot camp, like a weekend boot camp, where everybody who goes shows their pitches for fierce crit.
Yep. Yeah. Peer review.
Yeah. And we actually do pitches to each other, and we point out all the flaws.
Yep.
And all the points that we should sharpen. And then we get drunk.
That sounds great. Count me in. Yeah. Okay. Sign me up.
We need to pull our fingers out and actually do it. But I think it'd be worthwhile.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
I
mean, we're such a close industry and a lot happens, right? But it's surprising the things that don't. Things like that. I'm sure they must do, right? You can't be the first people to think about it.
Maybe there's an echelon of studios that do that. And we've not been invited yet.
And that's fine. We'll make our own.
We need to do our own.
Yeah. But you're right. Like, I think there's enough opportunity out there, touching on what you were saying before, that it's not. I don't think broadly developers are in competition with each other. Right?
No.
I don't think that. I think there's more than enough opportunity. And so, the idea of, I've always been a fan of knowledge sharing and all that sort of thing. So I think that kind of thing could become a regular, an event in itself, And the kinds of people that would be interested in doing it would be the kinds of people you want to get into a room and pick brains of,
Share war stories.
Yeah. I think, you could even, there's an argument to sort of, if it is useful and it becomes a thing, to scholarship's not the right word, but like to specifically be like, right, we invite a new studio every time it happens to be like to fill at least one of the seats at the table, or whatever you want to call it, you know, to kind of keep it fresh for everyone, but also to make sure that level of sort of insight gets spread further than just like
not just the clique.
The clique, exactly. Yeah.
Although it should be a clique to start with.
Yeah. Well, because it involves a lot of trust, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of trust there. And so until it's definitely worth doing and something that everyone's kind of keen to follow through on and commit to.
Until the format works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'd see value in getting to the point where we're streaming it or recording it and sharing that, you know. I genuinely think that's one part of the game making process that is still shrouded. You know,
There's a reason.
Yeah.
But like you say, it's not necessarily competition.
No.
I guess but there are good business development ideas that people might want to keep close to their chest.
Yeah.
And certain contacts they might want to keep close to their chest.
Yeah.
And only share with trusted.
Yeah, there's an element you don't want to
parties.
introduce someone to someone you don't rate, right?
Yeah.
Or you think, it's not going to work out.
But there could be an aspect of it that you can make public.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I tend to think that what we're doing right now is somewhat new.
Yeah.
And a bit risky.
Yeah. I Moo You hosted a couple, but it was 4 years ago.
Right.
You know, we did one, myself, him, and Mike Bithell, just sort of chatted around some experiences and whatnot. And I do think, you know, it resonates. You know, you've seen the view count that you've got. You know, it's good, it's solid. There's.
Do you think so?
I think so. Yeah. Like, it's easy to go, it's only that many people, but you convert it into a room of people, and you're like,
sure, that's true.
Okay, if I was running an event and I ran a talk with that many people in it, that's pretty legit. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, that's my little trick.
Yeah. You need to share some more tricks.
Keep that on.
What other tricks you got?
They all involve flaming swords and more ceiling height. Yeah.
I've got no more questions.
That's all right.
Do you want to talk about anything in particular?
I think like one of the last. Let's make it the last thing, I guess. I'm always interested in. So one of your notes that you've got there, I drew a little face next to it. I'll let you say it out loud.
3 games, yet 10 years in business. How?
Right? How? What? It's weird. And I think that, so I really wrestle, and this is just part of the therapy part, right? I don't think there's like an answer to this, but like I'd be interested to hear like your side of it as well.
Okay.
I really wrestle with the fact that people have heard of us, and that's great, and that's partly because we've got a cool name that sticks in the head.
It does, yeah.
Right, and a fun logo and stuff. We've been noisy about some of the games we've made. Now, I think it's evident that we've never had any real like chart success. You know, we haven't really got anything in the bank to speak of. You know, there's still 2 of us, 3 after, like you say, 10 years. And we've only shipped 3 commercial games, I think, technically speaking, right? And then you wrangle that, right, when you're pitching to people. So you've got Crunch was technically released as a commercial game. Hardlines definitely, absolutely was. Tango Fiesta, The Legend of Tango counts as a game. You know, we contributed a game to Warchild's first game bundle on Steam.
Okay.
I think it was their first one. A Verdant Hue. So that's 5, right? Anyway, so I'm like, you know, and then other projects. I wasn't trying to say you're wrong, because you're actually right.
Sure.
So we've done a game called Tomb for VR, which was for Game City Festival one year. We made a game called Hugatron for it's turned into Feral Vector, I think, or something like that. It was a different name back then. But again, just specifically for this festival. And that was nice because that was using Ewan again on the artwork from Tango. So that was really nice. We, the 4 of us, the Tango Fiesta team, did a paid jam for the Wellcome Trust, which was supposed to be part of an exhibition, you know, to do with science, global warming, climate change. But sadly, ours wasn't included for reasons that aren't really worth going into. It's just a trifling little thing. Yeah. and we have made a game called Super Doom Wall, which is to be announced a release date because it's in Unit 2 games game called Crater, which this is all public knowledge, but there's no release date for anything yet. So we've made a game in their game,
Okay.
and their game needs to have come out,
Sure.
right, etc., etc. But yeah, none of these things have yet set the world on fire. You know, we've been pitching a couple of ideas around for a while. In fact, Waterways, we'd kind of been like, it's properly on the shelf now. But then other people came to us, like 2 or 3 separate instances of that in the last sort of 8 months. So we're like, oh, okay, I guess we'll
Sure.
take it off the shelf. And all the no's, right? So all of those, there was probably 2 or 3 no's on different things that just never happened.
Yeah.
Or that we just had to kill, or it was just like, ugh, this is just bad. What are we doing? We're bad at our jobs.
Now it's starting to sound like 10 years worth of work.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've actually got, you're going to get an invite. We're having a 10-year birthday party, right? And we're hoping to, in the afternoon, so it's an evening thing, and it's the night before Resd.
Cool.
Which hopefully still happens. And the afternoon, we're going to hopefully, pending getting enough laptops, essentially have 10 years, 10 games.
Ah,
Which would
nice.
be nice. Anyway, that's a really long, rambly sort
That's
of
cool.
thing, right? But it'll be fun. But all that time, you know, because we haven't had the hit, you know, like Hardlines, everybody loved it and it made some money, but it sort of petered out because we, you know, what happened. You know, we weren't in a position where we would, as a unit who made the game, carry on doing it. And it just sort of, I'm okay with that. But that was like the chance we had, probably, out of all the chances.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Tango was like the thing that we loved, and the whole team threw at it, and we had a publisher. Oh my God, you know, and I recorded a video where I got a little bit emotional, you know, because we'd signed our first deal and all this kind of thing. But that didn't go anywhere, really. And then we had to kill an MMO we loved. And it's rough, man.
It is hard. It is rough.
And like the questions that you ask of yourself, right, as a creative, like screw the business side of it. Let's stay romantic.
Let's just imagine.
Right? We don't have to think about it. Let's stay romantic about it, right? You, when you wanted to get in the industry and you wanted to make games, and you've made some of the kinds of things that you'd expected and some that you wouldn't have. And it's not added up to what you hoped, right? What does that do to you? How have you moved past it, and how have you adjusted to that? Because
this is a meaty topic.
It is, isn't it? I'm sorry, I've done it
right. That's good.
But like for me,
we can go
I'm
another
not
2.
sure.
We can go another 2 hours on this.
I'm not sure I'm ever going to be over that, but I think I'm okay with that. I think I've just matured. I think that's the word for it, but I don't know. So like,
yeah, it's a lot to unpick.
Yeah,
but it's a fascinating question. Because one of my questions was, you know, you're 10 years old at the end of this month, or end of
the 26th, I think, of this month.
Yeah, and we were 10 years old once upon a time, and people said, "That's an amazing achievement. Congratulations. That's really fantastic."
Yeah,
I'm like, "Is it? We've clawed our way, you know, we've held onto the back of the bus and been dragged along.
Yeah.
For 10 years. Is that a massive achievement? And now we're 16 years, and it's like, okay, does it feel like an achievement? I don't know, because I started the company to make my dream game, and I've not made it yet.
Yeah.
And it's like, but then do you just wish your life away? You know, this is the question. That is. I love this question. Putting aside the business stuff and just think about you as a creative individual.
Yeah.
One of the questions we ask in our interviews is, you're on your deathbed, looking back over your life, what's the one thing that you will achieve that allows you to rest in peace?
Yeah.
And that tells a lot about the person we're interviewing, what they answer. And honestly, my answer is, I want to make the game that I started FuturLab for, and I want to make the music for it. until I've done that, it doesn't matter whether we're 16 years old, 25 years old, 50 years old. It's not an achievement.
Yeah.
But that seems extremely self-centered because we've got 20 people they've got a career.
Yeah.
Because of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So how do you value all the different ripples that you send into the world? You know,
it's yeah. I think that's a really interesting question to ask people. The deathbed thing, and I think there's like I get that sense of, oh, am I just being selfish? You know, even within like the tiny version of what you've got here, 20 people, like that's amazing. Just the 2-3 of us, there's still like, I'm aware that my stubbornness and my life choices and about the business that I'm running have meant that like, it's so like not a problem to have, but like it is negatively affecting to a lesser degree or a greater one, depending on how you look at it, my partner's life.
Right.
Because we're entwined, right?
Yeah.
You could boil it down to what I earn and what she earns and the kind of life that we would aspire to live, right? Let's put it that way. Because it's easy to frame. And it's like...
Real talk.
Yeah. But like, fuck, am I just being a prick? Like, she's amazing, obviously. And she's in a job and in a career that she didn't dream of. She grew into it and she loves what she does.
Yeah.
She really, really likes it. Like a lot. She'll bore me about it and I'll bore her about games. It's like, it's that level.
Right.
So she's still getting that satisfaction. She's still that emotional about a good day and a bad day. But there's me going, yeah, but, I could go and get a job at maybe a FuturLab. And I'd probably get paid more than I'm paying myself, right? Or an anyone, right? Or I could get out of games like so many people do and earn twice as much.
Yeah.
And that's such a privileged position to be in, right? Mm. And so then I'm like, God, I'm just a horrible person even for like worrying about it, right? I should take this opportunity that I've got and run with it. But to be truly selfish, you'd have to sort of not bring other people with you and not try and give people who don't have that advantage, right? So what you've got is you're paying people's wages and you're giving them this amazing place to work on projects that they love. And like, that's huge, And I think this comes back to what we were saying right at the beginning, doesn't it? Like,
it takes a pinch to really appreciate it though.
Yeah. I don't think we're built to see it as people, right? Just human beings. We are constantly
looking at the pasture across the fence.
Yeah. And it's an interesting one because that sort of trivializes it a little bit because it's sort of we're sheep when it comes down to it, like or cows or some other animal that likes grass, right? But running out of animals, rabbits, goats, but like to strive from where you are to somewhere better.
Yeah.
That's just our condition. That's the human condition, isn't it? So, but to be in a position that you can then bring other people with you and like give them a head starts or skip steps and things like that, I think that's something that's really exciting, and part of me is, there's games that I want to make and sure, there's like maybe there is a dream project. I'm not sure I've settled on one, right? There's a bunch of games I'd like to make, but combining the two, like now we're talking, right? Like that's the kind of the dream now. The reality is hopefully I'll just be able to make a company that employs people and they like working there. But that's freaking huge, that is tremendous.
Maybe combining the two is only for the super lucky.
Yeah.
Like we're lucky.
Yeah.
We're on the grand scale of things, we're extremely lucky.
Absolutely.
But maybe the people that, maybe the director of God of War is the luckiest son of a bitch.
Yeah.
to be able to create his vision and have a huge team behind him and execute with budget and scale
and
all those things.
Yeah.
Maybe there's just maybe history's only got position for like a handful of those people.
Maybe,
You know?
maybe. Yeah.
In which case we have to get pretty satisfied with what we've got. Otherwise, we are just wishing our lives away day by day.
Yes. I think there's a line between wishing your life away and staying hungry. Because I do think if you do just get to a point where you're like, you know,
Indeed.
then we're just, you know,
Then you rot.
yeah. Then that's it's not giving up, is it? That's a bit glib.
That's a pisser though, isn't it? Because you get up in the morning and go, I'm going to sprint for what I want. Oh, but I need to temper my ambitions. Otherwise I'll be disappointed. Oh, but it's
Yeah. It is a
constant
bit.
juggling.
Yeah.
I mean, we're juggling projects, budgets, people, emotions, personal goals. It's fucking exhausting, this luck, isn't it?
It is.
It's a good job it's fun.
I know, right? It is the most fun. I often think, so I've dabbled a bit in with writing and stuff, and that's sort of my other creative outlet. It's like my hobby if and when I do it.
Cool.
I do it so little because I'm very creatively satisfied in my job, right? But yeah, I had a very, very small comic publisher pay for a tiny amount for me and a friend to basically publish a graphic novel.
Awesome.
And it was tremendous, and it sold nothing, and that's fine, you know, because that was the hobby.
Gives a shit.
That was the hobby. And I do sometimes wonder, like, if I wasn't doing this, where would my passion lie? You know, would I be following that more and being equally as frustrated and, you know, emotionally sort of tossed about? Because as soon as you make it your profession, you know,
that's the
source
thing.
of income.
So my true love is music.
Yeah.
And I've often thought, I regularly think, you know, would I prefer to be touring as a DJ or some naff shit, you know? I do think I made the right choice because that's a tough life for a musician.
Yeah, no doubt you'd love being a tremendously successful one, right? But
well, the
but
chances
that's the
of
point.
that, yeah.
Well, exactly, right? Yeah.
So we're making a comic. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's tremendous.
I'll show you after.
I'd love to see it. Yeah.
That's really exciting. It's coming together really well, and we might show that. We might give it out and sell it on the website and stuff as a way to gauge people's appetite for the IP.
Smart move. Yeah. There's some really good places like awesomemerchandise.com or whatever it is. They do reasonable rates on printing comics and stuff. And it's something, that I've looked at on the hobby side, just specifically like how much would it cost to do what would a Kickstarter have to make just to get a run of 50 or 100 or something done at cost.
That just sounds like a full-time job, just investigating that. What was your graphic novel?
It's called Flayed. It's like a really, really schlocky kind of tacky horror.
Cool.
One-off kind of a thing. It's sort of based around the Native American myth of the skinwalkers, who are shaman, is that the right way of saying it? Who would wear the skin of an animal and they'd go into a trance and then they'd either become the animal depending on what you read, or they would take on attributes of the animal, or on the lower end of this thing that's not really the lo-fi, they'd be able to communicate with those animals, that sort of thing. And it's kind of it takes that and asks the question, well, it poses the sort of ... of humans are animals too, so. And then you combine that with a story about essentially a guy who is very unhappy with his lot and just goes off on a holiday, tries to leave his life behind a little bit, and just sort of like throws caution to the wind a little bit, and be careful what you wish for, sort of thing. And that was actually written around the time that I was leaving Dundee to set up. I didn't realise I was going to set up Spilt Milk at the time, but I was like, I need to get out of Dundee. I need a big change, all this kind of like, stuff.
Yeah. And did it just fall out of you?
Kinda. Yeah. There was an abortive first draft, which was, I barely remember it, honestly. It was terrible though. It was just not hitting on anything. There was no emotional core to it. That was the thing. I was just concerned with the cool horror idea. And then, one weekend, I think I just blasted out like a rough treatment for it and sent it to the artist. And he was like, that's better. What happened? I remember that. He said, what happened?
Cool.
Like, something's changed. And I was like, well, yeah, there you go.
So how long did it take to get from that to an actual finished, published?
Oh, gosh, like 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it was proper hobby stuff.
Yeah.
We're still in touch and we still keep promising that we'll, I'll write something, I'll draw something, this, that and the other. And I think we will. It's just, I have so little creative energy outside of work at the moment.
Have you thought about just hiring a cabin?
Yes. It's a lot of appeal. It'll probably be a caravan somewhere. Bognor Regis, how about that? On
With
the coast.
that person?
Well, that would be great. They live in Thailand.
Oh.
Yeah.
A beach hut.
A beach hut. Maybe I should.
If we want to get romantic, that is serious
that's
romance.
The way to do it.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I have 2 ideas for shorts. We want to do a little short because we just bit off too much, and that's saying, why didn't I know that? Games, that's the whole problem, biting off
Sorry,
too
how
much.
many pages then?
It was proper sort of, I think it was like 60 odd or something. No,
wow.
was it 100? What's like the standard? I can't remember what the standard is.
I don't know.
Something like, let's go with
that
80.
sounds like a lot.
Yeah, it was proper sort of, it would have been 6 issues of a comic, but it was a graphic novel, that sort of thing, 6 to 8
Can I
issues.
buy it?
You can order it, and if enough orders go through, they may well print another run, but I don't know what the cap is, and they're not the
Can
most
I read it
conducive.
on PDF or anything?
I'll just send you one.
Nice.
Yeah. It's super schlocky. Some of it I'm mildly embarrassed about, actually. But that means that I was honest about what I was writing at the time, and I'm a slightly different person now. But
just own it.
Yeah, I think it's still got a hook in some moments. There's some good drama. It is what it is.
Cool. I'm looking forward to checking that out.
Yeah, I know. I'll definitely send it over.
So yeah, you decided to do some DLC for it.
So we loved the genre. We love working together. We know that that's like where we gel creatively, and we wanted to do some shorts because it was like, right, let's do one black and white, so that like for him it's just like an amount
real
quicker,
quick.
and for me, shorts, so like it's nice and constrained, and we can just maybe get something together. So I've got 2 of what I would imagine you'd want 3 in a little collection. I don't know why. It seems like an arbitrary number, doesn't it? But they're very much about the concerns of, see, now I'm glad I've done this. The 3rd one should be about all this creative fear. I haven't got one that hits that. I've got one about relationships, and I've got one about houses, export house. Yeah,
life events.
Once you know that that's where this stuff needs to come from, it's actually really easy. Well, no, it's not easy, but you know what I mean. Like it's like, oh yeah,
writes itself.
Why am I creatively like blocked?
Because I've done fuck all.
Yeah,
for 3 years, I need need to do something meaningful.
Exactly. So yeah.
So, and how long are your shorts? How many pages?
Talking 8 to 12 pages,
Okay.
maybe even shorter, to be honest.
Okay.
I'd like to get shorter. Just it needs to be an exercise for us as a team, as a creative team. And that's something that I think that's coming from my experience as a game dev. It's like, let's jam something. Like we did the silly first project, I want to make an MMO open world RPG, the student thing. And then like, okay, let's completely overcompensate, but be sensible about it. And then, and then go somewhere. But we've worked with him on Waterways, actually, funnily enough. So he's a games artist who wants to get into comics. I should put you in touch, actually, just in case you do more. I think cooking, I'm going somewhere with this, cooking, writing, and the comic book sort of process as things that combine more than one sense, shall we say, rather than more than one skill. Although no, cooking's got loads of skills in it. These are things that I find very satisfying. And I appreciate, the parallels with games, and try and sort of, I'm not sat there, making a bacon sandwich and thinking, how can I apply this to my next game? But there are always ways of, drawing influence from that. And I think people always talk about artistic influence and, where'd you get this story idea? Where did you get this visual idea? Whatever, this, creative thing. But talking about like process ideas,
right?
I think that's something that maybe isn't touched on.
True.
So
ideas for process.
Yeah. Comparing outside of our sphere, how do other things do things, and how do I learn? How do I iterate on something when I'm making a dish? How do I iterate on something when I'm writing a script? How do I think about how someone else is going to transfer this and take it and turn it into more than,
Interesting.
And I think there's a lot that we could learn from other industries, and we look to film because it's the closest. We're movies, but you can do things in them, but I think there are...
It's not really close, I don't
It's not really close at all, no. But there are some really interesting books on comic book writing by... Again, you'll have to put it in the show notes. I can't remember his name. Scott McCloud. There we
nice
go,
one.
got it. Because he sounds like a comic book character.
He does, yeah.
Scott McCloud. Oh, what is he, a pilot? Who just breaks down... He's written a graphic novel that teaches you how to write graphic novels. And it's not some clever Uber narrative thing. He's just literally very explicitly, it's a tutorial, right? Awesome. With examples as you're reading them. And it's just fantastic. And I'm like, ooh, when are we going to get a game one of them? That's an interesting challenge.
Dreams,
can you even?
Is it Dreams?
I think it might be Dreams, yeah. I really want to get my mitts on it, but...
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. I want to show you our comic.
All right, bro. Yeah.
This has been great.
I want to see it. Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck with it.
And to you.